What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 43 of the Pylon Show. It's pretty incredible that we've done this show so long. 12 more episodes, and we'll actually be at the age of our toasts as well, which we'll have to do something kind of special for that.
Changes every week.
Yeah, well, you'll notice that age kind of does that, my friend. Welcome. We have a really nice episode for you guys. We have some returning guests and a brand spanking new one. Mr. Rotterdam, staying up late, by the way. You guys need to give these guys some super big love. You all, of course, watch both these guys stream, but do whatever it is you're not doing. There's a couple of you that aren't following, like, Rotti's Facebook or something like that, all right? Go out there and do it. But Kevin,
no, don't do that.
Back from Kiev, back home. It's a 2.5-hour flight. You must be exhausted.
3-hour flight, 1 hour
Wow.
time difference, Jeff. Like,
wow.
Damn.
yeah, safe to say my body hasn't really adjusted yet. Like, obviously it takes a couple of days, but in all honesty, I have been sleeping on and off. Like, I was actually tired because I had to wake up at 6 a.m. on my shuttle day. And, you know, by the time that you're home, then you're kind of tired. So you take a nap, and then suddenly the nap is a little longer. And you're like, well, but I was like, I have to do the Pylon show anyway. So it's okay if I'm going to bed every night at 6 a.m. because this is the schedule I'll keep for like a couple of days.
Yeah. Well, it's different for Kevin too, because when he casts too, every night it's you know, the brothel and the casino until like 7 or 8 a.m. the next day, usually hungover. Yeah. Right. So it's just a tougher trip for you.
I've got nothing.
Well, not anymore. You don't. Not after that kind of a trip. But all right.
Hey man, I would like to let you know that the exchange rate is really good right now in Kiev. Okay?
It's good in Kiev.
Just wait until you go there later this year.
Yeah.
The Ukrainian economy is not what it used to be, so that means that you can have filet mignons and beers for like roughly $10. You're gonna have the meal of a king. I'll kid you not.
Live like a king. I like it. I'm excited. But for the first time, also staying up quite late, so we really appreciate this. We got Mr. DeMuslim here. Ben, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. And it's nice to be on the show with all you Protoss fellas. You know, I hope to have a good conversation, and you know, I hope we get somewhere positive as well.
Yeah, we'll go through the roadmap, but just to give what Ben's talking about, and I'll just say this: we did try to put together a full Terran episode, and maybe that's something we'll still try to do. But as most of the top Terran players are European, Hero Marine in particular said that while he's competing in WCS, which he's got. His like group of 8 coming up pretty soon here. There's no way in hell that, you know, he was gonna stay up this late and do the show, but he is willing to do it after that, so that was pretty cool. So we'll try to get him on there, and then that's it. That's all the excuses I have for all the European Terrans. Every other one of them, it's just too late. They cannot.
Well, there's only like 2 of them anyway.
There are only 2 others, and they're nice guys, and I appreciate it, but it is hard to get Europeans on there. And then of course the natural question comes up: well, then why don't you do it at a different time? Sorry. Our toast is in Korea and has a full-time job and family. I'm in America, and I mean, I could adjust, but you know, it's just the way it is. So we'll do the best we can. But...
You know, I could get special on here, but I'm pretty sure he would just whatever points we make, he'll just ask if Protoss really needs a recall. So I don't know how useful that would be.
That is the funny part. That's the part we can't actually say. Like Dan's good friends with special, so it's okay for him to rib special a little bit, but. There are also bad guests. I don't think people want to hear that or believe that to be true, but it's also true. DeMuslim's a very good Terran who happens to be great in front of a camera and speaks well and friends with all of us. So he's the
great
perfect
Zerg
guest.
as well, by the way.
What's that?
Great Zerg player as well.
Well, like low GM level, you know, but
well, same as Rotti. I mean, it's just way up there. That's an inside joke. We'll explain that later, but or I think we already have. Anyways, the point is we're not going to give up on this, but it is harder than it looks. It's not just as simple as inviting them, and then they're just tremendously honored to be on the show, and of course they're here. It takes more than that. But Ben is sacrificing to be here, and we're going to have a wonderful conversation about what he thinks is the problem with Terran or where he'd like to see it go. Just a kind of a glance with a professional and fantastic player into Terran, because there's been a lot of talk about it. That being said, before we move on too much, I also want to say thank you, Dan, for being such an awesome co-host and wonderful person. What are you up to, friend? What's new in the Dan world? Nothing?
Nothing. No.
Okay.
Same old.
That's it. This will be the
GSL
last
was
show.
back last night.
Yeah.
WESG is over and stuff, so it's consistent StarCraft 2, I think, for the rest of the year for me until, you know, the finals, BlizzCon.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I'll stop introducing you. That's it. He just did the last introduction for the whole year.
That's
No.
what happens. I'm in my patterns, and I'm going to remain there for the rest of the year, and that's it.
Very good. Well, I want to give some love to our sponsors, of course, and also a big shout out to Twitch Rivals. They just gave us a host, so a lot of you guys coming over from that wonderful show. Thank you so much for stopping by. Thank you for the host, and thank you for putting on that event. I think we, Rotti, Ben, did you do it? You did the first one.
Yeah, I did this one as well. I was in the pool with the pros and stuff, so I got a little bit wrecked over there.
Oh, you were in the small one. Okay, so you know what? I don't even know if we have it as a topic, but we'll definitely talk about it because we all kind of experienced it, and then Dan got to watch. But it's really just at a glance, just really cool. It's basically a fun. This one is obviously a lot more silly, but it's just a fun event, and it puts money in the pockets of Starcraft people and gets people watching Starcraft, and that's a really, really cool initiative. So thank you to everyone at Twitch that is funding that and making that possible. And thank you to our very own Sue Lee, the legs of WCS, also connecting a lot of these personalities and gamers. And you know what's funny? So here's why I'm comfortable saying that, by the way, because someone made that joke, and then Sue was the one that repeated it like 3 times. So then I'm like, well, if she's going to call herself the legs of WCS, then I don't think I should feel bad. But also, she is the legs of WCS. Like, there's nobody else competing with that. So it's like maybe Rotterdam, but you only wear pants, so you can't even. Different department.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen Rotti in shorts. Actually, now that you think about it,
I have. I've been with his family and stuff. It is true. But there are some. If you think about, if you want to go down a weird path, think about some of these Starcraft nerds you've never seen their legs.
It's true.
There's a lot. I would almost say tasteless, but I've been over to Korea in the summer and I've seen him as well. And the hype is real. That's all I want to say there. He's got
little chicken legs.
Anyways, to roadmap the show a little bit, I'll do that after we do this introduction thing about our sponsors. We can't do it without, which one we want to do first here? Matcherino. So a lot of you guys did help out with the code. We did a little activation with 24-hour fitness last week, and a lot of you clicked it. But I'm going to call out some of y'all. Not everybody. They're not even close to the 250 we're aiming. Well, how close was it, Cobra? About? Give me a number.
It was about half.
About half.
Only half?
Yeah, we had like 1,000 of you watching. We begged and pleaded for like 20 minutes, and about 125 of you clicked on the buttons.
This is the easiest thing you have to do all
it's up
long.
There. Next to winning with Protoss, yeah.
And then just click it for us. Click it for us and type in the code. What's the code this week?
Well, this week it's a new one. Dan, you'll be happy to hear today is International Ravioli Day. So
I can almost get behind that. Ravioli is amazing. I do love ravioli. So it is impossible to get here, though.
Yeah. So I gotta keep this quick.
Type in ravioli and give us $1. Like, seriously, there's 1,000 people watching right now. Do you know how big a deal that would be if you guys gave us $1,000 right now? Oh,
that would almost get 1/5 of our toasters to a WCS event, you guys. That's like for one day.
Day one.
You could almost.
Well, let's not push it, Jeff. But
anyways, thank you guys so much. But it is through Matcherino. They've also been really wonderful to work with, and they liked our segment last week, which was really cool. So always a pleasure to work with them. So you can type in that code. It's free. It doesn't cost you any money, and it helps us out. We also, of course, are sponsored by AFKT, as we always talk about. Dan's
drinking it right now.
Drinking it right now. Shout out to Lycan and the wonderful...
I don't want to spill it. There it is.
Wow. Yeah, it'd be weird if you tipped it over just water. And we're like, well, this guy's a liar. So thank you for that. I'm going to do this real quick.
Just marbles in my cup. I'm like, yeah, look at that.
We'll talk about Patreon at the end at a little bit more length, but just as always, just a huge shout out to people that support us on Patreon. It's still just a tremendous number of you guys. Actually, over 400 now. So a few more of you signed up. We really appreciate that. Cobra also made it so that if you are subbed to us on Patreon at the $2 level, no, $5, right, Matt? $5?
$5, correct.
$5, you get the early access to the VOD of this show. It'll be up like within 2 or 3 hours after the show. It's pretty damn immediate. And it saves you the pain of subscribing to my channel or waiting a full 24 hours, which we actually had a guy timing Matt last week. That was pretty incredible. He said Matt came within like 43 minutes of being late. You guys like this content.
Which means he was exactly on time. He was early even.
Well, the guy actually was measuring it from the beginning of the show, to be fair, as well, which we say 24 hours after the show airs. I know. The only reason we've been talking about this is because it was amazing. I was like, this guy literally is like, they're like, all right, he's got 30 minutes. Anyways, thank you guys for supporting us. Please do consider it.
Also, if you are a $5 remember, you can click this button right here on our website, this wonderful Q&A button. It'll take you to a site where you can log in with Patreon, and it'll automatically dump you to a segment where you're limited to 300 characters, and you can post a question for this week's
Post
Q&A.
questions. There you go. That's how you get involved. So thank you guys. I'm going to do this stuff really quick because we've got European guests on, but thank you so much. And then I think we'll just roadmap after This Week in StarCraft. And Dan is about to just break your neck with how fast This Week in StarCraft is going to get so that we can get
I'm
to the
gonna do it
meat and
quicker.
potatoes.
Quicker than I've ever done it.
Quickest.
You ready for this?
Yeah, I'm ready.
This Week in StarCraft. If you want to know more, check out the document. It is a Google Doc that we link everywhere that you will get to watch this. So definitely check that out if I'm going too quick for you. Ladder Heroes, it might be the last month for this. So enjoy it while you still can. Winter and Light, top in NA, Cham and Namshar, top in EU. Check it out, ladderhero.es. We have the NA Apprentice Tournament. It was cast by Tempo and Fear Dragon, our last guests on the show. It looks like Future won 4-2 over Estrella. Big cheers to them. They're going to do it again. All right, Alpha X. We have more show matches each and every week. Looks like Early beat Damrud.
You're nailing it.
That is a,
Yeah.
Damrud.
Damrud.
5-4. Keen and Patience are going to be up next. I'm sure that'll be a good one. Check that out. It's on Africa TV, Alpha X SC2. The Alpha SC2 Team League is going on. It's a ton of teams joining up, and you can kind of check out the dates there. If you're interested in playing in Team League, definitely go to the doc and take a look. Master Swan Open, Sea Duckling Open, the alternating thing from Bronze to Diamond and then all the way up to Master Tournament. It looks like number 56 was won by Contistas. Okay, check it out. Twitch.tv/Cranky Ducklings, _ Ducklings, that is. Tespa Collegiate Series, the StarCraft 2 Team Brawl. Round 3 of the regular season has begun, and Waterloo is leading with the Riddler. I want to know which one of these faces is the Riddler. Do you remember the Velo Riddler stuff?
Far left,
I
it's got to
sure
be.
do.
It's definitely not the middle one. So
No.
it's probably a guy on the right.
Too obvious, but you might
The guy
be
on the right looks like someone who named himself the Riddler for sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Regardless, I'm not completely sure, but you guys can check that out. Tespa is doing great things. Check out tespa.org. The CSL going on as well, Collegiate Star League. We have more and more scores being updated, and the casting and streams by EG Zeno. Still around and kicking within the CSL. So check out twitch.tv/EG Zeno.
Apparently it was the left one.
Yeah, it's the left guy. I nailed it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's the guy. There
I
you go.
know.
That's the Riddler. That's the guy that had the 2-hour long game against a Velo
Yeah.
where they just sat there with Ravens. And there was a terrible ruling. That was a lot of fun. Anyways, SC2 Blazing Series Season 1. This is on Africa TV. Group C looks like it had a couple dropouts and is getting delayed a little bit to March 25th in just a few days. Well,
Interesting results in that Group C, huh? Looks
Dan doesn't get it. Or-
I
It's Max said
is it a-
that.
Max said
okay,
a
yeah,
couple
no, I
of
thought it might be a
walkovers.
Max head joke. Wait, do I need to refresh this? It says 0-0 on him.
Yeah, it hasn't played yet, mate.
Yeah, okay.
Next.
Okay, hold on though. I refresh it. I have to scroll down. Takes a minute. Thought you guys saw something I didn't. You didn't. Okay. I'm glad that you guys are enjoying this. Okay, Blazing Series. You can check it out on March 25th. The Clash Community Series, cast none other than by Rotterdam.
Whoa!
It looks like another one finished up.
Yes.
B, 3DB was the champion. Some good games in there, Rotti?
Well, actually, because I was doing Twitch Rivals, I only casted the semifinals and the finals. And I would be lying if I said those were the greatest games I've ever seen. B looked really good in his EVZ, though. I got to give him some kudos. He absolutely dismantled the other guy. But yeah, B against Goblin. Game 1, I feel like he lost 9 Overlords for no reason, despite having Overlord speed. Then he still Nidus with Queens, and he won. Game 2, he went for a lair, 2 minutes and 7 seconds. Like, I don't know what the world record is, but that could very well be it. And he Nidus. Game 1, Goblin left with a GG. And then game 2, he said, I've got so many things to say, but I'll say nothing. And yeah. So, no, not the greatest games I've ever seen, but excited to see more of B in the big final when all the winners play against each other, because he did look very good in the CVC.
What does a Protoss have at 2 minutes? Or like 2 minutes and 30?
It was, and the funny thing
Kinda
is that so he had like a Zealot and a Stalker, and he was obviously making an Immortal, right? But I was like, hey, why would he ever drop the Nidus next to the Zealot and the Stalker? It's like, well, because I'm Russian and I can. And the Nidus calls up, links stream up, and the game ends. Like, it was pretty bad.
He actually does the same thing against Terran as well. It's like 3 minute 30 and Nidus pops up in your base.
It's
and you
so
can't stop
fast.
it. Like you can't stop.
It's so fast. It's insane.
It sounds like a game.
I always
almost wanna
picture the
go
guy
watch.
when they do that. Like, I picture their face like, okay, yeah, it worked again. Okay, cool. That's good.
He's like,
I
I'm
should-
going to be a pro gamer. This is so sick.
Yeah. Wow, I can't believe I won
Anyways,
that. Yeah, nice.
Congratulations to B. If you want to check out the next event, it is next week, March 27th. Eric won another Latino tournament. This is his 6th in a row. He continues to dominate. It's crazy. Olimo League continues onwards. Looks like Maynard casted this week in English. Of course, you can support their Patreon for $5 and get the replays each week. But Solar won this week. It looks like a really, really stacked lineup as well. So very nice tournament going on over there. The Lenovo Legion StarCraft 2 Invitational from Take TV. They are going to be having group stage that starts next week. And 27th, 20th, and 29th of March. The playoffs are on the 30th. Check it out on Take TV.
Kevin, did you get an invite to go hang out at their house during that? By any chance?
What?
Did you get an invite to go hang out at their the Take studio while that's going on?
For this one?
Yeah.
No, actually, I have not been invited yet for this one. No.
Oh, wow.
But I think I'll pass. I've traveled enough. I did.
All right, the Pizza Pie Biweekly Season 1. Don't forget that they are teamed up with OSC now, so you can win your points there. You can check them out on their challenge. And it is open to anyone in the world, but they can't guarantee you a pizza if you win, because it's hard to order pizza somewhere. Star Killer, of course, still killing it. All right, we also have the OSC weekly schedule in the show notes. You can see on the, for instance, on the 18th, we have 3 different tournaments, and then 19th, 20th. You know, it's ridiculous how many tournaments are actually going on. I'm not going to go through and read them all, but if you are looking for some tournament action, this is exactly what you want to look at, is this OSC weekly schedule, as they are really kind of gathering together most of the smaller tournaments out there and giving them some sort of, you know, way that they, I don't know the word for this. Anyways, definitely check that out. Pig's Icy Fart Challenge this week. Hipster AF. Get an underused upgrade and use it excessively. Okay, so you can go and send your replays to Pig, and he'll take a look at them. The OCE SEA Spring 2019 WCS Challenger qualifier is on April 6th. A lot of good players from that region joining up. You can join it over on Challenge. It looks like Michigan State Collegiate Invitational, March 30th. It's going to be a tournament. We were talking about this a little bit last week. Young Jiddle, of course, leading the pack here for University of Michigan. Some really great IDs. Great to see so many collegiate esports occurring, though. Under our general transmissions, Rotterdam talks about the StarCraft 2 WESG tournament for way too long. I don't think that Rotti could ever talk about anything for way too long. But we're going to test that in a little bit. Yeah, we're not gonna. Yeah, that's a great screen capture right there. He's like, oh, I don't know. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but if you want to check it out, it's of course on his YouTube channel. And Mana also talked about his WESG experience. He's been putting up more and more YouTube videos, so check out his channel as well. It looks like Twitch Rivals is done. What was the final ranking? Let's take a look here. Twitch Rivals, of course, everyone playing against each other and win money. Jeff, you were a big part of that. 325. So you were 4th to last in NA. That was all right, though.
4th to last, Dan. Out of
yeah. Well, Rotti was 3rd to last, so you did better than him. The Muslim 6th. All right, there you go. There you go.
Not too bad. Not too bad.
That was pretty fun, though. Actually, I tuned in this morning. Huh?
$412.
Oh wow.
I don't know where I got the 12 from, but like,
yeah,
probably a split. Maybe in one of the mini games you had a split. Livy B didn't crush it as hard this time as last time. Last time she was the big winner, but Livy B doesn't wake up for anything less than 2.5K. So.
By the little cheeky Mr. Nathanius in the lower bracket. By the way, I think that takes some. You got to know somebody on the inside to convince them that one. He's like, yeah, GM. What is everybody else's rank? About diamond. Let's get me in there. It's a tough sell, but he got it. That's good.
Huh. It looked pretty fun though. There's like a lot of cool UMS games that you guys were playing. I was watching a little bit. Definitely check it out if you're interested in people playing those UMS games. And big thanks to Twitch for putting that on. Over in general transmissions, we have this weird tweet from Fear Dragon about making StarCraft 2 voice commands. I don't understand it, but you guys can take a look at it. He wants to make voice commands, I guess, for StarCraft. Okay, this week in Brood War,
That's like
BSL.
Is that like End This Game on Blu-ray? Oh, sorry, I just bought my mic. Is that like End This Game on Blu-ray? Is what he's talking about, or
Ender's Game on Blu-ray?
You remember that movie, like where as a kid is like talking and grabbing stuff with his hands? Is that kind of what like Fear Dragon is trying to do, or?
Oh, okay. No, I understand, but why on Blu-ray?
Yeah,
like,
I don't know. That's how I remember. They always. I think it was only on Blu-ray.
Is that like Ender's Game on Blu-ray? And I was like, are you selling something?
No, it's
right
like
now?
it's more like Ender's Game on DVD.
It was Blu-ray only.
Okay. Well, any way you can keep that out of the hands of the masses.
I casted that tough enough.
Fucking awful. Huh?
There was a tournament once called End This Game on Blu-ray in StarCraft 2, and I casted it. That's why.
I vaguely recall this now. Yeah, you'll cast anything. Oh my god. All right. Well, if you want to check out Ender's Game on Blu-ray, check out Fear Dragon's Twitter. Okay. The BSL Season 6 continuing forward. The round of 8 is completed. The semifinals will be DeWalt versus Trutax and Bonneth against Dragon. So really getting to the end of this tournament. A couple great PVZs between some of the very top non-Korean players in the world. Check it out.
Literally the same 5 people every time. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's like 10 really good foreigners basically, and they all play in it, and they have good games, and yeah, that's how it goes. All right, the STPL round 4 from Kix is continuing forward. Nas defeats Red 3-1. Check it over on Kix's Twitch channel. KSL starting up very soon on Sunday. In fact, there will be the online qualifiers broadcasted, so there will be an English broadcast that I'll tweet it before it goes live. And the Undermine podcast number 15. This week they talk about terrain analyzers, Brood War API 4.4, and Basil's stats and improvements. So you can check that one out. That's the podcast all about the AI scene that we lightly report on here, but don't really know too much what we're talking about. There's been an AI versus human match, it looks like, and they are going to announce the results in a few days, so we'll have an update on that. And, of course, a lot of bots playing against each other. If you guys are interested in this, definitely check out Antigua and all the work he's doing. They have that AI website, the sites.google.com thing. So check it out in the show notes if you're interested. We also have the Abathur Evolved bundle is up. There's going to be bundles moving forward, it looks like, continually in the StarCraft 2 store. So if you don't have it yet, check it out. Also, there's a giant banner of Sue in the subway station. Like really, really big. I walked by it on the way to work. If you're going to the Afrika TV studio, it's on your way and you cannot miss it. It is just massive, and it looks pretty cool. So yeah, cheers to these Sioux fans that decided to put that up. Normally it's just a bunch of boy band members saying happy birthday to a bunch of guys that are in boy bands on the walls, but it's nice to have Sue there instead.
How long does it stay? Do you know?
I think it's a month.
Wow, that's awesome.
I'm pretty sure they bought it for a month. Yeah, I think it was like pretty expensive. There was like this few days where like I would click on StarCraft Reddit and then like 9 threads would be there about helping to buy this, and I would just turn StarCraft Reddit off because I just was, oh my god, what am I looking at here? It's like, do we need this many threads? I don't know, but hey, it worked out. Okay, the poster is up, as you can see. All right, there's also from I Am Katowice, it looks like there's a way to get 185 Twitch bits if you purchase the war chest. It's very simple. I actually clicked it and got it. Do you guys know how to how I can send those bits myself? Can I give myself bits in my channel? No way to do that.
Just ignore them, you guys.
Yeah, you can just hear it in your own chat channel, and it'll come back to you.
Hey Jeff, you want to trade bits? I'll give you my 185 and you give me yours. This is extra funny to me right now because Jeff came into my channel yesterday upset that apparently I'm not subbed to his channel at the moment.
He never is. And I
No,
subbed to
I
him. I'm like,
normally am. Hold on.
you got gifted a sub, bro, and he even said
I think
it
I have a
out
Twitch
there.
Prime right now.
I think
Look at this. I have my sub anniversary is in 7 days. Total months subscribed, 5 months, Jeff. I just clicked on
Wow.
your channel. 5 months.
Shout out to everyone that gifts those subs, by the way. You guys are awesome. Thank you.
I think Artosis lost a bet against me once at an IEM about the outcome of a game, so he had to sub to my
Both of you.
channel. Then he shows
I
up.
gave you
and-
both tier 3.
No, I think you showed up and then somebody gifted you a sub, and you're like, "Well, that's it."
No, that didn't happen. You're making that up. You're literally making that up right now. No, I lost bets to both you and Jeff, and I had to give you both tier 3 subs.
No, yeah,
And
but
I
I think it happened also once where you just got one from one of the viewers, and you're like, "Well,
There's
I
no
see.
way. I do not welch on my bets, Rotti. This is a serious thing you're accusing
He'll
me
take
of.
some
Okay.
ribbing, but not that.
Yeah.
Does not do it. All right. Thank you, Dan. That was
Anyways,
awesome.
I've been subbed to Jeff quite a bit. Yeah, I think that's it, right? That's the end.
Yes.
All done.
So, to roadmap the topics, we have WCS schedule. We're going to talk about WESG finals and semifinals. But honestly, that's just going to be the WESG topic. There's so much more to talk about than just the semifinals and finals. And that's why I implored Rotti to be here, and it's awesome. Oh, actually, it's another category. But anyways, we're going to talk a lot about WESG. Talk about WCS Winter this coming weekend. The round, I don't even know what to call it, but it's round robin 8-man brackets are being played, which is really cool. Very different format. And then we're going to have a sit down with Mr. Demu here and talk about just kind of the general state of Terran. But also, I want to take some. Actually, no, that's one of our roundtable topics. I want to talk to Demu as well as commentating IEM Katowice. It was one of the first times he was asked to do that, and I know it was kind of cool to get the perspective of somebody that's been casting before but has not done a big event like that in a while and kind of came back into it. And that'll be our show before we talk about the GSL and ASL. And then, of course, the Patreon questions, as per usual. So that's the roadmap. First up, WCS schedule, you guys. It's a big one.
Yeah, it's coming right up, isn't it? Are you casting it, Jeff?
Yes, I'm leaving this weekend to go cast Winter.
Excellent.
But it's just a quick one. It's just a one-day round robin, and then the next day round robin, and that's it. And it's what the top. Isn't it like the top 4?
6, I think, right?
Or
And
all
then it's like
6?
the old,
Yeah.
like a
Top
bracket.
6 move on. Yeah, it's like one
Like
of
a
the
star
cipher
ladder.
brackets.
And the 6 go to the offline, right?
Yes.
Which is kind of a weird number, but
And then there is a chance that you fly to the offline finals for one series, and then you
Yeah.
can go home.
I also think 8-man bracket round robin, everybody plays everybody to determine the 2 losers is crazy. But it's made more balanced to me by the fact that if you place number 1, I think it is, you're like
Yeah.
already in the semifinals. So there is some value there.
I think you're already in the finals, actually. Like, that's how far it goes. It's actually really cool. I like the round robin. I think
Well,
the
it
round
can't be
robin
the-
thing is
Oh, if you win
because
the
it
bracket,
happens like the
finals?
6th guy plays. Yeah, it's like a ladder bracket that goes all the way up to the top.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's like the old Pro League thing, right? How they used to have it, where there was like 6 teams, but one team was technically already in the final, and then the rest had to basically level up.
So, like, if someone comes from the last match, they have to play so many matches to win.
Yeah.
It's actually really interesting because then they're actually very warmed up as well, right? So,
Well, this is nice. So this full schedule got announced. We can see there is going to be a GSL versus the World. We have dates for that. There's also Challenger for all the 3 WCS seasons. So it's a full year of WCS. There's something that for a little while there was some apprehension about and some stress, and then kind of as they slow rolled and said, no, here's a GSL season, here's WCS Winter. I feel like a lot of that apprehension kind of went away. We're like, okay, well, we got some WCS, and they said they're going to do more, and then there it is. So I think everybody can be very happy knowing that this year is pretty jam-packed with a lot of Starcraft. There's 2 leagues of Brood War going on, and then there's all of this for Starcraft 2. So you got plenty of Starcraft 2 coming up.
yeah, and it actually doesn't even have our super tournament dates in there, but yeah, there's a ton of StarCraft. Good
Even the
times.
super tournament. It's awesome. Jeez, who didn't have their phone muted on this professionally broadcasted television show? Ben, you excited about that? You know what? Let me ask you this angle for WCS. Now that you've commentated, do you approach this Are you gonna do kind of the Rotti approach where you fucking enter into every bracket and kind of try, if you qualify, hold it over the head of every pro gamer ever, or are you gonna do that thing where not even gonna try, just gonna try to commentate?
Actually, I'm not gonna try and participate as a player in tournaments and such. Like when I was trying to transition to be a caster, one of the things that was happening, and this especially happened with like WCS events when I said like I'd really like to cast, and one of the Blizzard employees, Mark, told me that there was like a high possibility that I'd be able to get to do 1 or 2 events of the year. It then turned out when the year came, which was a full like 9 months afterwards. So this was a long time in the planning of doing things. He was then like, actually, you're kind of a player. So if I actually employ you at this point in time, there's already turmoil amidst the casters because there's so many casters trying to get spots here. They'd be so upset and so angry with me employing somebody part-time potentially doing this, which I was upset with hearing that at the time. I don't know if that was just an excuse or a cover, but either way, I don't ever want to have that kind of situation again where it's like, so I'm just going to go full gung-ho with the casting thing at this point in time.
Okay, I can't fully speak for everyone, but I could tell you, well, pretty much speaking for everyone, I can't imagine the commentators would be mad at a, I don't know. I think there's the chance that someone could, and I guess we just say it's Todd, right? He'd get mad because he's French, but otherwise,
No, I
Happy
think
birthday, Todd.
I think like I think that was mostly just an excuse, right? Basically, let's say there's like 8, 9 people who would love to do a certain event.
Todd to the chat.
And kind of qualify. Fuming. And kind of qualify to cast. And I think it was more just that maybe too many promises were already made to too many people to then also squeeze one more guy in.
Yeah.
And then as the excuse, it could have been brought up like, well, you're also still kind of a player. But I think that's more of an excuse rather than it's coming out of the casters. It's definitely not personal, I think, towards Ben, but it was more like casters maybe fighting among each other, or at least like all competing for the same thing, whether it's loving or not, right? And I think
it was one of those things I couldn't argue against at the time at all, given that like I could potentially play as well, and for me it was just like, oh, okay, like yeah, that's fair enough, kind of thing, like an easy way to get out of it, kind of.
Thank you, Todd, for the host. Happy birthday, by the way. It is Todd's birthday, and that's awesome. Hopefully he had a great stream. I think it's interesting that we got kind of a little bit of a conversation on this, because I think too, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts, and please be honest, I think this is because there is no right or wrong answer, but it is like moving aside from what Mark said, because that was speaking on behalf of people that, I don't know, it ends up being more of an excuse, but if you are a player and it is tight as a commentator, my philosophy is if you can do both, and this is not a huge mistake or mystery, right? Because that's kind of what I did. I played for a while, not very well, mind you, but I was a player, and then when I got asked to commentate, I didn't give a thought about, am I taking this job from somebody else? Because I think it's always been like that with this kind of stuff, where like if you're employed, the hope is you're one of the best people for that job, right? Like it'd be weird if you were given that caster spot. I don't know. I can't even come up with a silly reason why. I always think it's the best person for that job, and there is more qualified people than there are spots, right? But whenever there's the concept of like deserving, I think that's a tough one for me to go into with a black and white answer, because I just feel like you're never going to make everyone happy, right?
No.
And I remember a while ago. Yeah.
Comps should always go to the qualified people. I don't ever want to see anything other than that. It's like, make the best show you can make.
So you would agree that if Ben's a great player and a great commentator, that's okay for him to get the job if he's one of the people who make the show the best.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. In fact, if I thought he did fantastically at Katowice, so I would just check with him and be like, if I was controlling it, I'd want him at the next event, and I'd just say, hey, are you going to play or do you want to commentate? Oh, you do want to commentate? Okay, you're hired. Here we go.
And it is tough. Yeah. We're talking right now, Cobra, about I don't know. It'd be too big to even make a topic. Sorry, it's a little bit impromptu. But we asked a Muslim about commentating, and he said last year he didn't get to commentate very much because he was also kind of a player. I think it's worth mentioning, though, by the way, that there are commentators that it sucks because they're not at every event, right? Like, and she's in the chat, but I think it was a huge crime that Zombie Grub wasn't one of the BlizzCon commentators last year. I think that, and that's. So there's never going to be like a situation where I'm like, that sucks, but tough luck or whatever. So I totally also do understand when someone who's like not really a commentator is also being given that opportunity, then the people who are like, I'm just a commentator and I'm already fighting for these few slots, that's kind of rough. But what I'm uncomfortable with, because I guess I'm a little bit of a dirty capitalist, it's like, that just happens no matter what, right?
Yeah,
Good talk,
I
good
mean,
talk show, guys.
this has to. Someone has to decide, you know, who gets what and who's getting hired for what. You're trying to make the best show possible, and I mean, people can always disagree and have their own opinions because this is all basically opinion based. It's very hard to measure exactly. It's not like a tournament where it's like, oh, this guy won. You know, you can't do that with commentary. So you have to do the best you can, and people should just get hired based on merit and how good of a show you can make, who's putting all together, and how's it sound and all that.
Like in Blizzard's defense, though, or like you know, in the previous year, Mark or whoever is in charge of it this year right now, like you say, like, oh, Ben did great at Katowice, so you should hire him for the next event. Done. Obviously, I think Ben did great at Katowice as well, and I love Benny, he's my friend. But you know, we all love Maynard, we all love Big, we all love Zombie Grub, we all love Fear Dragon, we all love Jeff. Hopefully, you guys like me, and we all like Todd. And then obviously we really like it when Rapid comes along as well. Loco's doing great. You know, like you can have 12 people there, right? So that's why it's not that easy. Obviously, Nathanius is great. Claris is great at the desk. Like, you know, eventually choices have to be made as well. Obviously, I'd love to see all 14 of us at every event, but it simply doesn't really work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough. Thank you for sharing that, though, Ben. I think that's an interesting thing. So that's WCS schedule. We'll now move on to WESG finals and semifinals. And I'll start. I thought, I mean, it's super, super interesting, right? Maru versus Scarlet. It's not even a semifinal. I guess I'm jumping around a little bit. Let's talk about the third place match, because that's kind of where I want to go first. This was, in my opinion, one of the shittiest ZVTs I've ever seen. It was absolutely terrible. And I'm not just talking about the 1.5 hour long game, which was the most interesting game of the series for a number of reasons. But I just mean, like, it was Scarlet, just like Maru throwing, and then Scarlet not knowing how to defend proxy barracks super, super well, I guess. Or maybe there isn't a way to do it, not to put it fully on her, but like, series is really bad.
It's one of the weirdest series. I actually think it's safe to say it's the weirdest series I have ever casted. Out of the 5 games, there was only one somewhat normal game, and that was Kairos Junction, which just ended with a Nidus, which was still a bad game, to your defense, by the way, Jeff, but that was somewhat normal. Obviously, the draw game that somehow isn't the draw, I mean, that's just one of the stupidest things we have all ever seen. Then in Port Alexander, when Scarlet reaches her lair and she's supposed to throw down a Nidus channel, she builds a second spawning pool, and the spawning pool was like 99% done. Then she cancels the second spawning pool, and then she builds the Nidus, and obviously the Nidus is too late. I think New Repugnancy would have just ended if she would have Nidus not literally right next to the only units that Maru had at that point. And then the final game, I mean, somewhat of a game, but still weird, because Scarlet builds a Hydra then. Hydra then almost finishes up, or completely. I couldn't even check that myself. And then she builds the Spire, and then you have to wait. And then, yeah, it's one of the weirdest series I've ever seen, if not the weirdest series I've ever seen.
And obviously the Maru not floating his buildings is obviously like one of the weirdest things for somebody of Maru's level to forget. And also, like, just if you are a Scarlet fan, the fact that she was up 2-0 after that happened kind of thing, like in the regame or whatever. And then the quick, like, yeah, she was up 2-0 against Maru. So for her to then lose that in the way that she did, that was also heartbreaking.
I felt like it. I had a weird moment too where, I mean, it's obviously you don't want to judge people too harshly on one series or whatever, but like Maru at the end of that game when he was picking up orbitals and landing them next to planetaries and like receding back, it's not just that he forgot, it's that it was not anywhere on his mind at all. Like he literally thought he needed to defend with planetaries and his army. And he also just didn't attack for about 45 minutes. He literally sat back, which is a viable strategy for Terran, is to try to play for the draw. If they get into a bad spot, they can be like, I'm the race that can play for a draw. Let's do this. So that's kind of what everyone was thinking. And then at the moment of the draw, he didn't even know that that was an option, which then is like, what were you doing for 45 minutes?
I think it's important to add as well that there are still a lot of people who are confused about it, and they still think that this like 20% score rule thing had something to do with it, but that absolutely had nothing to do with Maru's decision. Nope. That is something that's maybe in the scorebook, let's say, of like two players refuse to accept the draw and it goes on for 3 hours, I guess then a referee can step in and like, hey, we're entering this game. But obviously that wouldn't even be an argument because A, you don't know the score, and B, why would you not float all your buildings and your Vikings to the corner to protect your score? But none of that was even relevant. They just didn't think about it. And then some people said, like, Maru pointed at the screen. Like, they say these things. Maru pointed at the screen to the referee and he said no. And then, like, that's just made up. Like, people just make things up and just throw it out there as a fact.
But hold on. So this Maru point thing, I wasn't like, I heard about it a little bit. So in the rules, it says something about points at a draw.
Yeah. But
So
but
because Maynard is saying in the chat that he said in an interview with Crank, who's like kind of the Rifkin of Korea, like that he was looking at the point thing and thinking that was.
But that still doesn't make sense, right? Like, let's say, first of all, I don't know what the points were, but I can only assume they were incredibly close because Maru also mined out the entire map, killed an absolute million units, and then Maru killed way more buildings of Scarlet than Scarlet killed
Maynard
Maru.
says he didn't say that, even though he said okay. Oh, because he forgot. Okay.
Yeah, Maru said he just didn't live. Like, so the point thing had really nothing to do with any of it. People still think that was a thing. But even if points would somehow matter, which would be weird, right? Because that would suddenly be the first time in 9 years we have a brand new rule. But even if that is the case, then you save all your freaking buildings and your Vikings and you still put them in the corner, right? That's
yeah. Okay. And I mean, I definitely agree with you guys. It's clear that you should always have that in the back of your mind. But to play devil's advocate just for a moment here,
I applaud you for
a
trying.
lot of times people will look at something a pro gamer does. Like a unit will be lost, but you could have gotten more out of it, and they'll think, God, in my games, I always get more out of it than that. And whenever things like that now get pointed out, like I like to point out to people that like this is why you're not a pro gamer. The pro gamer isn't thinking about that because that isn't what's important to the pro gamer right now, right? Because they're kind of focused on a different set of things. Just because you get a little bit more out of your Hellions in this situation or something like that, right? I'm not coming up with like a really great example at the moment, but like just because you micro a lot right there, the reason why they're so much better than you, part of the reason at least, is that they don't micro so much there. So yeah, you kill 2 more drones there, but actually they didn't miss their macro and they landed their command center and they sent their SCVs or whatever, right? And so I think that something like this can happen. Like, yeah, he forgot, and a lot of us who watch a lot of games and things, get excited about draws and are very interested in that situation. Whereas maybe Maru is, just a little bit more focused on like, okay, I got to win. How do I win? And just really focusing on other things too.
I think also one thing that people have missed out on when they talk about this is the interview with Scarlet afterwards as well. Mm-hmm. She actually says that she also totally forgot about a Terran being able to lift buildings. And the fact that she was constantly trying to kill turrets everywhere and constantly trying to kill everything that he had, maybe it was just like for both of them, they were so like focused on the game and trying to win, not even thinking about the situation. So like they both weren't thinking about it at all. I don't think it's purely with like obviously a massive mistake by Maru, but
yeah,
I don't think it's something that we hold against him.
Yeah, because what Ben said, if Scarlet is thinking about it, the moment
and she's just holding back and not playing aggressively.
No, but the moment that Maru said, like, pause, you want to draw, like, Scarlet was supposed to say, yeah, because that's literally the best that could ever happen for her, right? There is a way where she could overcommit near a planetary and the ghost can really start sniping things. Like, there was normally, Scarlet can't win there. Unless, Maru does not put one of his buildings in the left corner of the map. And so, to me, what's funny as well is that on this map, there's actually a lot of space. Like, there were certain maps where you literally had to have, like, one building exactly in between 2 little spots. But there is so much space on Kingscope as well. And that was made it extra funny to me.
For me, I like your point, Ben. It just actually shares the blame. Like, it's just weird to me that 2 players at this stage, that didn't become something they thought about in the game. And like, look, I get it. And it happens, right? Like, that's why I say I'm not like, it's just one game, so I don't come away from this and being like, Scarlet and Maru are the dumbest people I've ever seen in my life. No, of course not. They're incredibly talented, very good players. It's just so weird, whatever storm of what happened, that in this game, Scarlet and Maru managed to forget that Terrans can float buildings. Because it's not like that happened in Legacy of the Void, guys. It's been forever. It's been Wings of Liberty. And it's actually like a part of their strategy. It's like, okay, I can't win, so we draw, so I get a regame. And then Maru starts just 2-raxing and winning every game. Anyways, that was weird. I thought you guys came out really well, by the way, as commentators, because an hour and a half of commentary for the first game of the of the day is
Well,
really tough.
It was a little less, Jeff. We missed the first 18 minutes. So.
You know what? That's actually a perfect segue. You know what? No, we got a topic about your thoughts on the cheating and stuff. I guess let's talk about the other semifinals as well. Just the top 4 of this tournament. What did you guys think about the results here?
The other semis or the final?
Semis into the final.
Okay.
Let's start with the
Who wants to
semis.
go first?
Yeah, you go, Kev.
I thought the first EVC was actually, at least, I think, game 1 between Scarlet and Serral. I thought it was a really, really fun game. Scarlet used the Nidus in a way that I actually love to see Nidus being used, right? I really hate seeing Nidus just end games with stupid all-ins, especially when it's 3-4 minute games. But the way that Scarlet was using it, I think is just awesome, multi-prong attacks. And even though he was not on the winning side of that first game, I think that really showcased how we want to see the Nidus being utilized in StarCraft 2. And I thought it was a really fun game. I was kind of worried for Serral going into that series because Scarlet even though she doesn't beat Serral that often, she won in Korea back then during the IEM. And then the last 2 WCS events, she did lose, but they were both so close. And Scarlet should have really won in Valencia. And I think she could have definitely won in Montreal as well. So I thought it was going to be harder for Serral than it was in the end. Like, that first game was really fun, but after that, it kind of felt that Serral was in control, despite one bad game where he just didn't scout well enough.
And then, Demaz, did you check out the Morrow vs. Innovation TVT?
I did. And I saw a lot of comments talking about like how bad Maru was, which it always makes me tilt quite a lot when people talk about how bad the loser is as opposed to how good the good player or the winner played. Because Maru was trying to do a lot of his crazy shit, right? Like, he was down 2-1 and he resorted to doing what Maru does, which is proxy 2-Rex, and he is like legit one of the best at it. But then like Innovation scouts it immediately, like the whole game's thrown off. And from there, like, you have to do a lot of crazy stuff as the guy that's behind in TVT, because TVT, it's so linear. Like, there's a rule book that you have to follow. And Maru was trying to do little things here and there to cut corners, but Innovation, he just followed it down to a T and just did everything perfect. And while Maru, I think he can play better, he definitely didn't play bad. I just think Innovation played super good TVT.
But as a neutral spectator, it was kind of a bad series to watch, though, right?
Oh, it was bad. Yeah. I mean, like, when you've got a guy that's kind of trying to throw a curveball and you got the other guy, it's just like, yeah, no, I'm just going to kill you now.
Play normal. No.
Yeah.
Deflecting it all around.
It was like Maro's trying to do things like when he was behind after that 2-Rex, making 3 Ravens as opposed to like the 2 that's a standard, and he just got absolutely shut down. Like, yeah, it was a bad series. But I think everything that happened in the semis that was kind of bad was made up for in the final.
Yeah.
Even though it was a weird final, like Serral, like the first 4 games did not play like the Serral that we all know and love kind of thing at all.
Well, let's go there. Let's go to the final now. It was a close one at 4-3. Innovation once again. I don't even know if we can call it an upset at this point in time, but we still have the hangover from 2018. But this is the guy that just seems to be getting in Serral's way a little bit. The first guy to beat him offline at IEM Katowice and doing it in the late game, and now in this final for a big cash prize. What happened here? What do you guys think of the finals?
I think it's super cool that we have like these final rivalries appearing with like Serral and other players, and it was Serral beating Innovation 4-3 at Home Story Cup. So the fact that they met again, it was also a game that went all the way. It was super cool. I know Serral was a bit sick, which he talked about. So like maybe that had something to do with it. But again, I think it was a really, really cool series. And we got to see a lot of everything. Like that Cyber Forest game, we got to see Serral just doing amazing late game Zerg things. Like I don't think anybody uses Vipers better than him, which is always impressive to see. But I think Innovation, again, just played very solid.
Dan?
It seems like, because I think we talked about this a little bit either last week or the week before, where because he has lost Innovation and how the European Terran scene is just small in general, where, Korea has like all the strongest Terrans basically, that he just doesn't have as much practice against really, really high-end Terran play. And it seems to be like his weakness that's popping up a little bit, right? Like this is he's not losing to. Are you laughing, Jeff? You don't.
Sorry to interrupt. Matt's got a scene prepared to show, but the WESG chat is literally just like number and asterisk naked women in the chat going up and down the entire time. And this video showed the chat and had that, and he's like skipping past it frantically to show the clip.
That's funny.
We'll get to the production in a second. Sorry, go ahead.
But yeah, I'm just, it's like, it seems that this is his big problem. It's almost like Cyril needs to come out to Korea and spend some time to practice his ZVT up a little bit, because I don't think he's like worse than last year. You know, it definitely doesn't seem that way to me. It's just, he needs a little bit more against these top-end Terran players, I guess.
But to me, it did feel that, why was this not an issue last year then, though? Because they played against each other in GSL vs. the World, and Saro absolutely murdered Innovation 3-0. And
Innovation
back then.
Innovation played like trash in GSL vs. the World last year, I thought.
Yeah,
well,
but,
not like trash, but he didn't play super well.
Yeah, but he beat Rotti.
No, Rogue played like garbage in that series.
Yeah, but I feel like this is
I love Demuscle because I hate it when people bash on the
worst
loser.
Series of Rogue's life. That was the
but
worst
this
series.
always happens. I feel like this happens so often. Whenever Saro beats certain Koreans, then they're out of shape. And then when they do beat Saro in return, then suddenly they have caught up and then Saro is not that good anymore. Like, I find that very weird logic, right?
I'm not saying that at all. Okay. I was saying Rogue was completely out of shape. Yeah, he did beat Innovation last year, but Innovation didn't have a good year last year. Within Korea, outside of Korea, that was the worst year Innovation had in like the last 5, right?
But you can also say maybe it's like, obviously the game has changed a little bit, right? Like there's a different patch and slightly different meta. And don't forget that Home Story Cup, even though it was played on the newer patch, that's already where the games were closer for Saro against Terran, right? Like against Asia, it was very close. Against Innovation, it was very close.
And Bunny, it was close.
Sorry?
And Bunny, it was close at Home Story Cup as
Yeah,
well.
super close.
So let's just say what Rotterdam's trying to say is Cyril a patch third? You know, I mean,
literally the opposite. So I think there is a chance that maybe his ZVT did indeed get a bit weaker, but I absolutely do feel that this was not the best Cyril. And I don't want to be like on the Cyril excuse hype train or something and say he was sick and he wasn't playing his best, but I honestly believe that he can still play better. I don't think he's worse than last year. I just don't think he's playing as well yet as he did last year, but I think he still can.
One thing I also think, I don't think he's bad against Terran, actually. Like, if you class losing to Innovation 3-4 in the final of WESG when he's sick as like him being bad against Terran, I think we're all just so critical of a guy that's been a god for so long, right? I actually think one of the main things that's actually working against Cyril a little bit is all of last year, when he was winning WCSs, all the foreigners were like, man, this guy's freaking top level. Like, he is the best. And all the Koreans were like, no. Like, Rogue's better, Dark's better, Sue's better. Then finally, GSL versus the World came, and it was like, okay, no, this guy's really good. And then I think like the Korean Zergs, and also especially when BlizzCon comes and Cyril wins again, I think the Korean Zergs then looked at him and finally respected him, then started copying his styles. So like when the Korean Terrans actually practice against the Korean Zergs, it's no longer just the Korean Zerg. They've got like that Cyril refinement into them. So I think everybody's had the time to catch up to what Cyril's been doing, as opposed to Cyril slowing down all of a sudden.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, the Korean Zergs have evolved a little bit since BlizzCon. Like, for instance, I especially see it in their ZVZ. You see, like, because all of them were kind of weak late game ZVZ, except for Rogue was pretty good. And now all of them have improved their late game ZVZ quite a bit. So I definitely see what you're saying there.
Kind of the way
it's
of
always
Starcraft
nice
too.
to watch. Yeah, I mean, it's always nice to watch Cyril play. Like, he's the one Zerg that I always felt like, I mean, you brought it up about Rogue. Like, he can play absolutely phenomenal or make some of the worst mistakes you've ever seen, kind of thing. Like, it looks really weird when you see him play. But whenever you watch Cyril, it's like every move he makes, it just absolutely makes sense. Even though, like, we can see the whole map. It's almost like the old Stefano, you know, where he just sees things in the fog of war, perfect micro, perfect multitasking, and he just I'm never, even though I get sad watching Cyril play when he loses, that series against Reina, for example, where he's so far behind, the fact that he can make these comebacks happen, like no other Zerg can play like Cyril. Like he still is the best in my eyes.
Yeah, no, I think everyone agrees he's still the best Zerg player and probably the best player overall. But his weakest matchup, I think you'd have to say, would be his ZVT, right?
Oh, it does look like it right now. Yeah, I do think
like it's not a ZVP. I promise you that.
He loses maps in ZVZ as well, though, which is interesting, right?
Yeah, he does. He does. I think that ZVZ.
He did lose to Neeb as well, though, at WESG, and that
was a really bad.
That was Cannon Rush, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, cannon opening-ish on Port
Yeah.
Alexander. But like
It's
Cyber Forest that was just not a Cerro game at all. It's like a couple Dark Templars running to the other side of the map, killing a hatchery. I'm like, what? Like, I don't know what was that, but that series, if you would have hit the name tag there, no player in the world would have told you that was Cerro. I'll guarantee you that.
Mm.
It was kind of funny because going into this year, I really was gut checked and wanting another run, right? Like Cyril literally just untouchable, wins everything. But I'm actually kind of liking the way this is developing, where I like Ben's theory that Korea respects Cyril now, so kind of amping up for him, but also even in the foreigner scene, Neeb showing more life than he did all of last year, right? Like nobody thought Neeb to be a threat to Cyril last year. We all kind of wanted it, but every time they clashed, it wasn't super great. It's kind of, I'm going to mention this. It's a little bit it's obviously early and it sounds overly negative. I don't mean it to be, but it's almost a little bit of a downturn for Raynor as well, right? Like his results are chilling out a little bit. Like he was all momentum 2018, 2019, dropping series to, again, very good players and still getting good results. So like I said, it's not like he fell off the face of the earth and it's this huge disappointment. He's a young man, but losing to multiple people.
I don't know. Did you watch a bit of my video when I spoke about the Raynor, Jeff?
No, of course not.
It's a no. So
Dude, Rotti, it was too long, man. I wanted
it
to
was
watch
too long, I know.
Show. I didn't have the time.
Okay.
You talked for too long, but I want to hear what you said in the video.
Well, go ahead and
No.
more. Talk about it now.
We'll
You
let
tell
it
me.
go. It's basically a little bit what Jeff just said, but we'll let it go.
Oh wow, I hurt your feeling. I'm sorry,
No,
man.
we actually
No, it's fine.
We like to tease you, Rotti. It's okay. No, please.
Yeah, what were you gonna say though? Not just what Jeff said. What do you mean?
Oh no, there's still that. I think Raynor is still like deserves the hype, and obviously I think still absolutely up and coming. And I think we all love Raynor. But I think if you look at Raynor's 3 biggest moments in his career right now, it's when he was up 1-0 over Maru in GSL round of 16, incredibly far ahead in game 2 on Acid Plant, and somehow gave it away when he just made a bunch of links, ends up losing the game, ends up losing the next game, ends up losing the next series, and he's out. He's so close to making top 8 GSL Codes, and he went out. Then you think of Montreal, game 6 against Cerro. It feels like that game is 100% over, right? And somehow it's not. And somehow he loses the championship. And then you think back of this weekend where he's playing a 5,000 series against Neep. First 2 games, he murders Neep. Game 3, he kills 11 adepts, loses like 2 drones. And it feels like the game is over. And it slips away again. Like that's 3 very, very, very big moments. And of course, he's still young. And I do really hope that he gets it together. But those are not just like, he got close, but those are like, no, he had it. And that's actually kind of scary maybe in a way if you're a Raynor fan, because obviously he needs to turn that around. Like he needs to become a little more clutch in that way.
Was one of those moments the Cyril finals that you mentioned? Or
Yeah. That's the second one, of course.
Yeah,
that's kind of interesting because when you describe it like that, it reminds me so much of TY. Like how many best of 5 series have we seen TY up 2-0? Crushing the first 2 games, and then he loses 3-0, and it's just like doesn't even look like the same player. It happens a lot with him.
We're spoiled by players that remain calm and cool as they get closer to the finish line, but it's actually so fucking hard. It's because there's a voice in your head that's like, hey, 1 or 2 more games, you got this, and you're about to win $150,000, whatever, $100,000. People are gonna, but that voice actually kills you. It's so hard because then the hype switches. You drop that one map and you're like, Jesus Christ, what if I lose all of this? It's going to all go away. And then it starts happening and it kind of, tilts you. But then there's players, like if we referenced this earlier, think back to when Stefano was winning. The guy was in his socks in a booth, usually like not even thinking about things. Like he just, Stefano was a savant. Then you look at innovation. Tell me that guy gives a shit. Tell me he's like freaking out in his head right now.
Yeah, that's true.
Even Rogue, when you see Rogue winning, there's like a little bit of perspiration on the side of his head. That's it. Otherwise, just like the whole time. But then, anyways, it's amazing. We're spoiled by how many players can do this for how much money is on the line, and they just are amazing. They can do it.
It even happens to Inno though. Like I remember that final against Sulky. I mean, this is talking a little bit of a while ago when he was up like 3-0 and then lost the next 4 games in the final. Like, but yeah, it's we are really harsh on people when they start doing this, but. Choking is a real thing, like, and it can happen to anybody at any given moment too.
And it happens more after you've done it. After you choke 1 or 2 times, then that voice
then you've got
is
the
even
fear
more
of it,
powerful. Yeah,
you got the fear of it then.
And we need not look any further than like Sue's reaction on stage when he won Katowice, like to know how much of a nemesis that can be to a player. Like that guy just It was amazing. Anyways, before we move on for this topic, I do want to talk about this too because we have Rotti here. But the production for WESG, that was a shit show. It was a rough thing. And again, kudos to you, Loco, everybody. You guys handled it really, really well. Because that's a part of it too. It's actually really hard in the commentators. You're getting people tweeting you. You're getting comments. There's threads, and it can get negative really quickly. But you guys kept it super positive. I thought you did a great job. Was it in the Ukraine because of broadcasting rights?
So I actually don't know exactly why it was in Ukraine, because the last 2 years, StarLadder did run the event as well in China, and they just brought us to China. But this year, I think you were reached out to as well. There was another company in the running that just sent out 20 emails, and they thought that they were going to organize the event in China. And then I think only like in the first or second week of February, maybe the second week of February, WSG decided that they won't get it, but they'll go with StarLadder again. So I don't know, like, is that enough time to actually prepare a broadcast from China? Maybe StarLadder just said, like, hey, we'll do it for you guys, but we're going to run the show out of Ukraine.
People are saying
then, because
Twitch is banned in China, so that might have been actually, that's
yeah.
It sounds like you were told.
Yeah, so maybe they just said, like, I think we'll do a better job, and it's obviously a lot cheaper for us if we can just do it from Ukraine. We'll bring broadcasters there. So I don't know anything more than that, but I assume because it was so short notice that's why they went for the Ukraine.
Let me put you in the hot seat. Are you worried for WCS Kiev?
No, not in the slightest, because that is completely different. Jeff, we worked all week long with two people, okay? One producer, a guy who whenever the screens go gray, he's like, a couple times I had to go get him as well. I was like, yo, mate, it's time. And he's like, oh, okay. And he calls back up. And then we had a lovely talent manager who brought us lots of McNuggets and burgers. This is not StarLadder, okay? Like, if you want to know what StarLadder is, you watch any of their Dota productions, any of their Counter-Strike productions. And I met with Alex once in the evening, and he told me some of their plans. One thing I'm super excited about it, but I can't talk about yet, but this was not a StarLadder as in a StarLadder production. This is one guy running over a feed and basically letting us talk about Starcraft 2. I am not in the slightest worried about it. Obviously, if it does go wrong, I'll look very silly, but I know that this was one guy. And in the future, we're going to have a full team of many, I don't know how many, but I assume it's a crazy amount of people working on it. So.
And full disclosure, so that this isn't confusing for anybody in the chat, Kevin's not responsible for this. He's just a good friend of all of ours, and he's an honest guy. So I was asking him his thoughts on whether or not we should be concerned. It's funny that we have to say it, but there will be like two people like, well, better be good, Kevin. You know, you're gonna get an angry tweet from me anyway. So okay, that's good to hear. That's it's good and bad to hear. It's kind of sad that. Because it kind of showed. To be honest with the production, it felt like, you know, you guys were in front of a green screen in a different country. I
mean, that's kind of what it was, right? Casting over the same thing as you guys were seeing, and that's what we were working with. And obviously, we did do our best, because I think, so obviously, like it was never good, and it was never going to be much. But at one point, you just have to accept that is what it is, and then you can be upset about it for the next 6 days, or you can just be like, all right. I'm just going to try to enjoy some StarCraft whenever it's on, and I'm going to lower my expectations by a lot, because this is clearly not necessarily meant for the English product. And also, they do like 9 games, by the way, at the WSG. Like, I know a lot of StarCraft fans always think that everything is about them and it should always be perfect. And don't get me wrong, I thought it was obviously a bad show in that way as well. And I've said this last year already too, that like we could do so much more, but it's simply not a priority. So at one point, it doesn't matter what I say, but at least we did our best to be a little bit better with timers, because the first day was the worst. It basically just said 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., and they didn't do anything. There was no clock. There was no notification of when the next game. So, you know, us guys, we really did try to at least let them know when there is a countdown, when the next game starts, and update the schedule. We try to do the very little things to at least make it slightly more watchable. But yeah, I agree with you guys. It was not great, but that's why I said at one point, it's just like, well, let's just enjoy the StarCraft. And I think the StarCraft was actually really enjoyable this week.
Yeah, you guys did a good job. Before we move on, you guys have any thoughts on that? Ben, Dan, anything to add?
Sorry. Oh, I was just going to say, I actually thought some of the player shots were pretty cool from the event, like where you get this video of DNS singing to himself and stuff before the games. I thought that was kind of like nice, getting to know the players a little bit. Just through, I always like player shots where you get to see their gear and stuff as well. I always think that's pretty cool. But overall, I think the games were really good from WSG, like quite a lot of the games. There was quite, like some upsets. There was also like quite a bit of drama, which overshadowed a lot of it. the production value, obviously, that sucks a little bit, but I think the cast has also handled it pretty well. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, I enjoyed it. I'm glad it happened. Oh, I'm glad the event.
I think in the end, sometimes you should be. Let's be glad that it happened, right? Ino's happy. I think Sarah was quite happy. Everybody else that made money is quite happy. And it wasn't great, but we have a million good replays out there that everybody can enjoy. Hopefully, a lot of the players did have a good time. It seems like some of them did. Obviously, some of them did not. You know, I don't think we need to go into detail of who those were, but I think overall, it's still good that these things happen, right?
Man, it was super positive. It was pretty funny. He got to the bubble money round, and he's like, he got Sarah, and he's like, okay, well, at least I get paid pretty well for where I play. He's like, oh, lol.
It felt like in more old school esports thing where, like Rotti said, the priority isn't there for the viewership experience. They're not trying to make an esports product. They're trying to make a different type of product with this. So yeah, just be happy that the tournament exists and it puts a bunch of money into a bunch of players' hands, and it gave us a bunch of great games. I mean, I'm so happy they released their replay pack. That's some quality stuff. So cheers. I hope they do it again next year, even though you can't count on it as like your regular viewing quality as everything else is.
The picture-in-picture was pretty well done, by the way. That was like one of the very few things that they did have.
Oh, and the eye tracker was cool too. Like
yeah, exactly. So they had they missed like a million good things, but they had a couple of good things, to be honest.
They were showing the eye tracker, and then like you guys would be 3 minutes into a game. It's like, oh, he's T-Rex at him. Like, this is crazy. Like, just missed all of it.
Yeah. Well, I thought you guys did a good job, like I said, with what we had. And yeah, the games are great. I'm always just a little bit sad if they kind of missed opportunity, but that's, it's whatever. It's not in any one person's control. And if they want to host a $250,000 tournament, and then like,
if you want to hear some funny stories, by the way, Jeff.
Yeah.
So apparently, I don't know if this is 100% true, but it seemed like it was true. Maybe Rapid can confirm this for me. But apparently, some of the guys in Ukraine, they were casting, I think, the female Counter-Strike tournament for like a full-on like 70 minutes, hype and everything. And then after the match, they realized that the stream wasn't live.
No!
Yes. So they're casting their heart out, and it wasn't even broadcasted. And also, I think there were a couple of dudes were casting Pro Evolution Soccer. They were very nice. And then it just turned out that nobody labeled the WSG Pro Evolution Soccer stream under Pro Evolution Soccer. So there is a stream, but nobody could find it. So, maybe to somewhere it wasn't that bad for us.
Oh my God.
That's so painful. That is
how these things happen, dude.
I don't know, mate. I mean, that's also a bit on the casters, because obviously, at least the first thing we do is we check Twitch chat, and then they're like, "Hey, fuck you, this sucks." It's like, "Yeah, we're sorry, we're trying." But at least we know we're live,
Dude,
like,
commentating to nobody, that's got to be the funniest, because they're like, "Dude, that match was hype. I'm going to check on Twitter. Like, people got to be talking about this." Like, there's nobody talking about this. This is so weird. This is. I'll tell you what. I don't know. I don't know that people in chat can relate to this, but one of the worst things in the world, and this happened to be exactly one time, and since then I've been paranoid about this. Way back in the day, Six Pool Gaming sponsored Evil Geniuses, and they had us doing these instructional videos. I woke up at 6 a.m. and recorded like literally a 3-hour video about like the openings of Protoss or some shit, talking nonstop for 3 hours, and then at the end of it, one of our producer guys was like, "Oh yeah, it was Fraps wasn't capturing that whole time." And I'm like, what is that? What do you mean by that? And he's like, "Well, it's, you are just watching videos and talking to yourself." And I'm like, "So it's recorded nowhere?" And they're like, no, it's fine. I mean, just do it again, right? And I'm like, the idea of like trying to use voice inflection and be entertaining after having already done it is something I cannot do. I just can't. So I was like, well, I'm not doing it. Yeah.
I once casted Hearthstone for like 2 or 3 hours for an event once, and then it was realized that it wasn't on, and they wanted me to recast the same game. So you know what it's like to recast Hearthstone when you know all the cards that are about to be drawn? Do you know what that's like?
Oh, he needs a wild, and he got the wild.
Bad.
While we're on the topic, one of the funniest things ever. I don't even know what. Okay, so real quick, this is such a fucking aside, but it's just funny because it's kind of related. IPL, I want to say 2 or something. The qualifiers online. It was one of those tournaments. Anyways, HD Starcraft and Pain user, just as an aside, they used to watch, because it was a replay casted tournament, they would watch the replays and then commentate the games after. And to this day, it's like one of the worst things I've ever heard in my life. Because with the viewers, and every time someone's like, I miss HD Starcraft, I'm like, that guy was a fucking con artist of a commentator. Like, can you imagine a world where you're like, what if he text switches to Cloaked Banshee right now? And then he starts doing it, you're like, whoa! Like, what an amazing... What do you think, Payne? He's like, it surely can't work, because if... I mean, well, yeah, that's going to be cool, but what if he switches to Vikings after in response? And then he does that, and the viewers are like, these guys are nailing it out of the fucking park. It's insane. And I'm listening to this the whole time, like God. Imagine like broadcasting a football game you've already seen, like he's throwing it deep. If he comes down, this will be the greatest play I've ever. He came down with it. You know, like all the calls you can make. It's insane. And for weeks, people are like, "That's a great tournament." You know what? Shout out, by the way, to the commentators, because like I watch In Control and shit. He gets shit wrong all the time. It's so fucking stupid. I watch these guys. They're making every call, and I'm like, anyways. I don't even know where that came from, but I just had to share it real quick. That's WESG. Cool tournament. Very nice. Let's move on to the next subject, which is, I think, something else, and then we talk about Rotti's thoughts. Yes, so WCS Winter. We kind of touched on this a little bit, but here is the picture of these round of 8s, and we got a bona fide pro gamer, commentator, and streamer here in Mr. DeMuslim, who plays against the European bracket, at least, all the frickin' time on the ladder. So, Ben, what do you think? Who's coming out here, man? Who's coming out on top? Does Cyril reclaim the throne?
It's top 6.
Yes, top 6 advances to the offline event.
Everyone plays everyone, though, right? Like, it's just...
Yep, it's round robin.
I think Cyril first and Reyna second, honestly. Those two are looking like the hottest right now in Europe, like on the ladder. I think Lambo's actually looking very strong recently, too. I'd probably say of this group, Rail and Drogo are the underdogs. I think Gabe has a decent shot at making like 4th as well, maybe. Like probably above Showtime, actually.
Okay. Yeah,
but I have it's close. It's close. I think
Drogo with some results too, though, right?
He went like 5-0 in his WESG group
twice, I think, in 2 groups, like both groups.
There was only one.
Nice.
But Drogo's one of those like hit and miss guys, right? Like at IEM he bombed out like without winning a series kind of thing, and then at WESG he floored his group kind of thing. Like he beat Reyna there too, right? It was Reyna in his group.
Yeah, Reyna was in his group.
Yeah, so Drogo can either show up or just like totally bail. But yeah, it's a really good set of players.
This is only as a slight aside. I love Gabe. I love Hero Marine and his stream. I've been advocating this for a while. You got to go watch the stream. It's one of the funniest things. But he did the funniest stream. Just to give you an idea of his mindset for this group, by the way. He was on this. He like started this show. He's like his stream's becoming a production by the cat. If you haven't watched Hero Marine stream, Jesus Christ, what are you doing with your life? He started with like, I'm going to prove to you that TVP is the worst matchup in StarCraft and TVZ is like the best. And he loaded up a whole bunch of random He's like, I haven't watched these. I don't know the result. And then he just criticized the players. And every time like the Protoss won, he's like, the Protoss won because it started off with the advantage of being Protoss. I'm not making these lines up. And then he's like, for instance, as a counterpoint, let me open up some TVZs and I'll show you how much better they are. And unfortunately, he loaded up Maru's games because he was like, surely these will be great games. And every one of them was just a cheese fucking fest and it was terrible and sloppy. But to watch Hero Marine try to explain that away organically on live, I was so happy. It was so beautiful. He's just like, he hit the clock when he'd open, like, okay, 3 minutes and 25 seconds. Another short one. That's interesting. Let's close to see what happens. Okay, it's a 2 racks. Okay, so 2 racks is still a viable strategy. This is very good. Then he wins or loses, whatever. Goes to the next game. Let's check the time. Okay, a longer one. 7 minutes and 45 seconds. See what happens. Marauder, Hellion all in. Okay. Sometimes that happens too. He did this for like an hour and a half, and I watched every minute of it because I loved it. So he's taking this group very serious. He's in great shape, but he's the only Terran in there. That's rough, right?
Mm-hmm. Very.
Now, North American side, there's a couple of interesting names in there, right? Like, if you watch Puck stream, Puck basically every night plays about 4 or 5, 6 hours on stream, and I would say 3 or 4 of that is literally just PvP against Estrella. The two of these guys, they have the same time slot. They just fucking hit each other, and Puck is an eccentric kind of, different kind of guy and weird player, so they're just talking the whole time. It's fantastic PvP, but it's like 4 hours of PvP between the two of them. And Estrella's a young guy, getting some results. He's in that top 8. Who do you guys think makes it out over there?
I think obviously Neep and Scarlet, I think, are the 2 big favorites. I actually give Chem a really good shot because Chemi has been playing well, and I think he's somebody who's overly motivated in general. And then to round out the top 4, I'd probably give it to Australia, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think I'll give it to Australia. I mean, this is online though. Don't forget.
Yeah.
I'm feeling it for time. That's going to be some latency he's playing with right there. That could be a little bit rough. I feel like he's obviously good enough to make it through, but I don't know. Playing Terran with that type of latency, that I'm sure it's going to be at a time that's not fantastic for him over in China as well. So
yeah,
a little bit nervous for him. I think Masa will surprise people, do reasonably well.
He always does.
Yeah.
I would say Masa's not in the bottom 2, is what I would say. I don't.
Yes.
Not
certainly.
in the top 2, but somewhere between 3.
I think Probe is a long shot in a way. I think he's like bottom 3-ish maybe here. I haven't seen too much of him this year.
Yeah, this is where the Australian Starcraft 2 kind of cruise line for WCS stops. Like Probe or somebody constantly gets about this far in the tournament, and that's awesome. And then they just get fed alive to like. I'd love to eat my words, Bo. I'd love for Probe to just destroy this group, and I'm completely wrong. But he's probably in that bottom 2. I think it's like time and Probe.
Who knocked out Special to get here?
Chem, I think.
Yeah.
Was it Chem? Oh, yeah.
Chem was in the group. I don't know if Chem knocked him out, but Chem was in the same group at least.
Chem lost to him initially and then beat him in the loser match or whatever. Yeah, decider. Which was like the first time in like countless series, which was super cool for Cham. And also Cham's like, I think he's about 6.6, 6.7k MMR and EU as well right now, which is obviously like really good. And also he plays so freaking much. Like
Cham is a roller coaster though, mate. Like you can play Cham at like 1 a.m. and he's 6'7", and then you wake up in the morning, you're like, I'll play a game. You hit Cham and he's 6'1". You're like, whoa, what happened, mate? Like, how do you even do that?
Lings work at different times of the day, it'll be fun. Kevin hyped this up. I can't remember, maybe it was on your stream, but I like the round robin format. We get to see everybody against everybody. None of these players are going to lose a couple of unfortunate. It's not you hit Cero and then you're out of the tournament. Not yet, anyways.
And it's not only matchup dependent, right? I think this is just the most fair thing. And I obviously am aware of the fact that, okay, there might be an irrelevant series. Cero 6-0 goes against somebody who's 0-6. People are like, ooh, who cares about it? But I really think this is so interesting to follow because it's just the most fair. That's what it is. There is no like, okay, you get a fortunate matchup or even stylistically good opponents for you. No, you actually have to play everyone, and then I think the score will give a much better representation who's actually the best, other than like using the traditional 4-man group. I think this is so much better.
Yeah. So WCS, kudos to them. I like it. This is really fun. Yeah. That'll be going on. It's this weekend. Like I said, it showed the clock on the graphic right there, but 5 days time, and one bam, then the other, and it'll be kind of that WCS group. Myself, Nathanius, I believe, Zombie Grub, Fear Dragon. Unless I'm mistaken.
Did the Americans ever play against the Europeans, like after they qualify through these round robins and such?
I don't think so.
No.
Or they do, right? They do combine them?
No, I think they separated all the way to the end because the top 6 advances into this weird like stairway system. So
that'd be cool though if they just did one at the end.
Maybe an ultimate showdown. Maybe the NA champ against the EU champ.
Does each champion get a bid to the World Championship?
No. It's just WCS points, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, so it's like a lesser WCS than this one.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
That would be kind of neat, though, if that's seeded in. I wouldn't mind that.
Be more
I mean, that would be 2 seats immediately. That would be pretty extreme, right?
Pretty extreme.
Well, there's only 3 more events coming up, right?
Yeah, but I would still give away 1 more spot than last year. So, no.
It's not happening. Is the bottom line. So
Yeah.
I don't know how far we want to take this.
I would like it, and Rotti wouldn't like it. Do
Yeah.
we want to talk more about that?
We'll get your guys' debate with the sentient food. It's coming up. Don't worry.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah, that's WCS coming up. I think we now go into, and it's kind of the order is a little bit silly. We're going to go back into WSG a little bit and talk a little bit about the scandal that happened. If I'm not mistaken, this is the next subject. Because Rotti's got a little bit of a different take on this, and I think that's interesting place to go. So to lay it down, we already talked about this last week, but there was a cheating accusation, mostly put in place by a person that has been betting on some Starcraft matches. They made a very detailed post kind of talking about how certain factors made it look very weird. And then since then, there is a Beastie Cutie video you can watch on YouTube. There is, I think there's various other people that have made analysis. Well, we would just direct you towards Beastie Cutie because he's awesome. And then there's been even ongoing discussions about on Reddit. We kind of left it last week with, hey, we don't know, but this is important news. If it ever gets flushed out, we'll of course revisit it. But at the same time, we talked about the gravity of accusations, and we talked about the likelihood that it may or may not have happened. But Kevin's been kind of in the middle of this, embroiled, you might even say. So we wanted to kind of talk about that with Rotti. So Rotti, what's your thoughts? What's going on with that?
Okay, I mean, don't really know where to start because it's such a long topic already, right? And it's been so spread out. First things first, I think what you said last week is the most important thing. Whenever there is something like this, I think it's really important to talk about it. But it is such a shame that almost everybody jumps to the conclusion immediately and labels him as guilty, often even before understanding what the betting line thing means, often before even watching the replay in the first place. So it's like, it seems that I kind of became the face of the defense. I'm like his attorney over here, which is not at all, because I'm actually completely in the middle of it. I am honestly not sure, because obviously on one side, I think you guys already explained it a bit, this looks pretty fucking weird, right? Like a 4K player takes a map of a 6K player. How often does that happen? Some people say 1 in 10,000 games. I think that's a little too extreme, but it's very unlikely. 1 out of 30, 1 out of 40 games. If you're very relaxed, if you're really not paying attention, these things can happen. But that is not the too weird part about it, because that has happened to me. I think that has happened to a lot of good players, that once in a blue moon you lose a game you're really not supposed to lose. And often something weird happens. And I think this game definitely qualified as very weird. But I think where it gets all very complicated is with this whole betting line moving. And that's obviously why the majority of the people immediately put 2 and 2 together, be like, well, somebody put a lot of money on it. The result happened that was not expected. This means Maxed is guilty. And that's just kind of where I draw the line and be like, whoa, 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 like this is actually going really fast. And like, where is the proof here? And I think the most important thing for me is what Pinnacle would say, right? Because that is the website where the line has moved so much. First, I want to also explain, like, to a lot of people, I talked about this for 22 minutes already, and obviously I'm not going to redo my 22-minute speech, but it's not normal that you can even bet on these kind of games in the first place, because this is technically a game that is for $0, right? Let's be honest. Like, yeah, they're playing in a $250,000 tournament, but 70-91 is never going to win anything. Maxed, I honestly believe, out of 100, like Ben, if you play this tournament 100 times, how many times is Maxed going to make it into the quarterfinals?
Very unlikely.
Yeah, either 1 or 0. That's really how I see it. So this is most likely a game for $0. I find it very weird that you can even bet on this game in the first place. Like, that's just stupid. That should not even be bettable, because you're basically betting on games that are for nothing. But that's irrelevant. Apparently on Pinnacle, you could bet on it. And one person did bet on it, like $300. And he said that the line barely moved, either between 1 or 10 cents. But basically, his bet did not have a big impact on what the line was. Then later on, the line jumped by basically from 150 to 2, which means that normally you put $10 on this bet, you get 15 back. Now you get 20 back. This is an unusual big change. And the only way that that happens is if somebody would have put a lot of money, or many people would have bet a little bit of money on Maxed indeed dropping that map. And that's why, of course, everybody thinks this is so weird and this is so suspicious. And that makes sense, right? Because why would that line suddenly move so much? And I find that very weird as well. But that's why I think the most important thing out of everything, and that would obviously change my opinion as well, is if Pinnacle comes out and be like, well, we have received an unusual amount of bets or money coming in on this weird Starcraft game where the unexpected result happened. This is fishy, we're voiding the bet. Like, if Pinnacle would have done that, or they would have came out and said that, then I'd be like, okay, like, clearly something very weird is going on here, then I still don't know if you can accuse Maxed immediately, because I feel need to be like a little bit more proof. But Pinnacle basically said that this is fine, and they avoided another match in the Counter-Strike tournament of the same event, and they avoided multiple Starcraft matches in the past with weird betting lines, including the very, very biggest names out there that have never been accused of match fixing. And this is where I just think it's a little bit weird that we, as a community, all immediately jumped the gun on Maxed being guilty, while the website that technically has the most insight of what actually happened in that entire process said that nothing suspicious is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think it's so crazy that everybody assumes he's guilty.
Yeah. If the website says, the website has a lot to lose, right? Like a website, like a betting website, basically prints money. They make so much money. Whatever they made off of that bet doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. What matters is that they retain their licenses to be able to continue being a site. Like, and the fact, Rotti, that you say in the same event there were bets that were voided because of suspicious activity,
yes,
triple underlines that this is not something that they are overly worried about. So, I mean, I know that the guy that made the post and lost the $300, it was very well written. It seemed like he was very calm and stuff, and like maybe he just completely believes that this is the case.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, maybe it even is the case, but as far as we can tell, all the evidence that has been gathered, you can't destroy Mexed's life over this. It can't.
I know, and like the game, people are very obsessed about the game, but okay, Mexed is obviously not supposed. Mexed is not supposed to lose against this guy, but I love how everybody is just like, yeah, when Mexed showed up in the main base, he should have immediately realized there were 3 gateways on the other side of the map.
No,
in one universe.
No, that's not a build.
It's not a build. So how can you just assume that is happening? Like, I find that crazy.
I will say that when he arrives at that base and he sees that there's 1 gateway and there's 2 gases, and he has an interview afterwards where he's like, yeah, I thought he was expanding at this point in time. And it's like,
but maybe that
doesn't make sense either.
Well, maybe that's mistranslated, Ben, because what does make sense if you get cannon rushed is that you sometimes cancel yourself and then you just drop a nexus and you recall the probes, right? That is a thing. So maybe that's lost in translation. I don't know. But I think like a lot of things are obviously very weird. And that's why I said, like, I definitely would never want to put my fucking life on the line saying that this is not fishy or it doesn't stink. But I also don't think the evidence is really there to end this guy's career. And a lot of people are saying like, oh, Pinnacle would never just, I see like a lot of comments in the chat and I'm not even going to respond to all of them, but Pinnacle does void bad guys, especially if what this one person said with the great written post, and this is really important to understand, is that if $300, he said, barely moved this line, this means that for the line to move by that much, you're talking not about another $300 bet. No, you're talking about 20,000, 30,000. If you're going to tell me that Pinnacle will not void a bet after they have to pay out $25,000 to a winning bet for a StarCraft 2 game that's about 0 money, and they are getting, you know, a lot of complaints, obviously, about the game being suspicious, I don't know. I find that just they're supposed to take action there, and don't tell me that Pinnacle doesn't do that, because Pinnacle does do that. I know that for a fact. They've done it in the same tournament about Counter-Strike match.
Well, the inescapable part for me is like I actually think it does look really fishy. I think it looks gross. But, and this is the weird part, and this is why we're even revisiting this, because give Kevin a platform, but also like we for weeks got comments from people, Twitter, YouTube, all this kind of stuff, like very upset that we didn't condemn Max said, like come down on him. And I need it to be like said again. You actually can't. You should not. Because even if you think this is so damning and it's just could not be any other way, you still don't know. And you're talking about stuff where people go to jail, they cannot play a game ever again. This is actually their career. And they actually get like a huge chunk of their life, or straight up their life actually ruined off of something we don't know. What this means moving forward is that Max said will be looked at under a magnifying glass. Like if more of this happens, that becomes proof, and it starts to become something that then people do look deeper into, or he stops getting invites, and then it's like, well, we can't 100% catch him, but we know that this guy's got some weird stuff going around him, so then it becomes a problem. But there's this weird number of people that were just like, nope, it can't be anything else, burn them alive. And I'll tell you what, StarCraft offers us so many learning opportunities. It seems easy to say that until it happens to you, where someone's like, I'm absolutely certain you did this bad thing, and you're like, no, I didn't. And they're like, well, guess what? You're going away. Your life's ruined. Fuck you. We were just pretty certain it happened. It's the worst. Can't do it.
Was this
Max-
match also played when they were both out, by the way?
No, they were not out yet.
Okay.
I think Maxa did lose his first series, but he wasn't out yet.
Okay.
And Maxed's been a pro gamer for like more than 10 years. So it like that kind of adds to his believability a little bit,
Yes
right?
and no.
Because this hasn't
I can
really
spin that
come
as
up.
he's later in life, he's getting less results, and getting a $5,000 paycheck to drop a map to a random guy would be pretty great.
Yeah, but you know what? All these people leaving the angry messages about, oh, you need to condemn him or something. All these people weren't on the betting site watching the line move. Do we actually know how much the line moved? I know that this guy that made the nice post said it moved a certain amount.
Yeah.
And without
Did
any
it?
numbers actually being
I don't know.
revealed.
I know
about-
that Pinnacle didn't avoid the bet, so that's what I know.
I mean, like that's kind of my thing as well. Like everybody keeps saying that like large sums of money came in, but that's the thing we don't know, right? And I also like I agree with Jeff. I do think it all looks really bad. And I'm not necessarily on the Max and this totally innocent side. I just don't know. What I do know is that I don't see enough to say that he's a match fixer. That I do know. Like I absolutely don't see that unless Pinnacle would void the bet, or Pinnacle would maybe maybe we can reveal numbers. Show me the large amount of money being bet on that match, right? Like betting sites make mistakes, and I see there's like 2 diehard guys in the chat right now that are absolutely up in Pinnacle, but betting sites make mistakes, and betting site voids bets as well for multiple reasons. Not often, of course, because it's their business and they need to keep a very good reputation. But these things do happen. I see it in football a lot. It happens in live betting. What if all of this literally came from a mistake? That's literally possible.
I wonder as well if Blizzard looked into it at all, because I feel like it shouldn't be, the onus for this shouldn't just be a betting site as well, right? I think that the actual, like Blizzard as the company that runs the majority of StarCraft esports should probably look into this, get the numbers, go over it and see what they think about it as well. I don't know if that's occurred. I haven't seen an announcement about that. I don't know if you guys saw any, but
I can
I feel
only
like that's
assume that
the
they
only
did
thing.
look into it, right? And they should. I think like everyone should. Like I don't think people are like WSG should investigate it. I don't think WSG is going to
No.
investigate it because
No, they shouldn't. Anyways, I wouldn't even want to listen to what they have to say.
Exactly,
They're not
but
an actual esports company.
I
They
do
don't
agree
know
with you
what they're
that
looking at.
Blizzard, and I think once again it's really good that the community is discussing it. But then I wish that we were actually discussing it before immediately jumping to the verdict without the real proof.
To be
being
fair, a lot we're speaking to the minority, right? A lot of people are handling this exactly how you should, in my opinion. You should talk about it. It's perfectly natural to arrive at a conclusion where you're like, this is really suspicious and bad, and I'm thinking that this person is guilty of it. I think it's a marketplace of ideas. We have these thoughts, we have these opinions. That's okay. I'm speaking to the few people that are like pretty aggressively not only saying like he's guilty 100%, they're also attacking and going after people that don't agree with them and think that they should do more to also agree with them.
No.
So it's a
I
weird
get accused
situation.
of my opinion because I work for WSG.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope that you guys can explain how stupid of an accusation it is. I stream all
Not
year
even
long.
WESG
I cast
shit.
every tournament. First of all, I don't even get hired by WSG. It's just like, just because I have a different opinion than somebody else, now suddenly I'm not trustworthy because, yeah, those 6 days that I get paid by Star Letter a year, whew, without them guys, like, no, my life wouldn't be the same. This is definitely worth, lying to or like making up every single word that I say. Like, no, I really believe in everything I say. And once again, I absolutely think I could be wrong. There is a chance that Maxa did do something terrible, but I honestly don't know for sure. And I think as long as we don't know for sure, we can't just accuse or assume that he's guilty.
Yep.
That's all I'm trying to say.
And for
Yeah.
me personally, I actually, if you had to put a gun in my head and I had to make a call, I would say he is guilty. I would say yes. But I believe in a world where even if that's true, and I think that's true, unless I know for certain, I am not willing to burn that witch, because I would rather 100 guilty people walk than one innocent person goes away. Like that is, and you don't have to agree with me. That's okay. That's a different worldview. But for me, the idea of what happens to a person when people are just like, no, that's it. And it ends up being that they were not guilty of that is such a gross atrocity that I will never do. I'll do everything I can to not be a part of that. Like it's abhorrent to me.
But
And
don't you
again,
guys think
it's okay
that
to
the
be
damage is done already? Like the damage is done, right? Like, is this ever going to go away? Do you think, especially like if you look at the online comments, I feel like 90% just hates Maxed now.
It
They
will
just hate it.
follow him, but it will go away if nothing more like this happens. But that is also a scary byproduct of just doing this and anything like this. Like once people have an idea, it doesn't really leave you for a long time.
All right. I feel like something that also should be talked about again. I already said it before. Is just like, why does this even exist in the first place? You know, like if people want to bet on a GSL final or a WCS final, you know, let them. Cool. If that makes it more exciting for them, you know, betting happens in every sport around the world. But how on earth can you even bet on group stage games between a player that nobody has ever heard of? Like, that's just so stupid in my opinion. They're playing for zero money at that point.
Mhm.
And it's like people are like, it's a $250,000 tournament. We all know that's not how it works. Like these guys are technically playing for zero money. There really shouldn't be bets on that. Like absolutely not.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's a different story altogether. I think anytime you're betting, like if you guys want to pretend that the tradition of betting is this like untouched Puritan example, like livelihood where I'm sorry, I would say more bets than not are on certain levels are touched in one way or another. And if they're not, then you're coming close to the ones that are. Like, and that's actually for me what makes this even more believable is because if someone went to Max Edwards like, if you drop this map, I'll give you $5,000. He looks at this and goes, 70-91, like this is nothing, and one map out of a best of 3, so I still win it, which he did, by the way. The results end up being exactly the same. It's a victimless crime. But what's so important in StarCraft and what's held to the highest and in competition in general is the sanctity of the game. If we start throwing matches and taking money for that, then it completely delegitimizes everything. Guys, and this isn't even said, but this is like the advantage of the ThePylonShow. We are explicitly instructed to never mention Life's name in any competition. If you go to BlizzCon stuff, his picture is struck and removed. He is blackballed from Korea. It's like actually, in my opinion, over the top. It's crazy. But that's the degree of how bad this is in gaming and competition. If you do this, you are removed from the history books. You cannot be a part of it because it touches other people. It all of a sudden it starts tainting everything. So it's like treated like a cancer. You cut it out and you remove it. So when there's just like average Joes in the channel, like, nope, that's it, burn them. Let's just wash our hands. We're like, no. You're like talking about something way bigger than you can even comprehend. And I'm trying to tell you as an industry professional that like you cannot until you know. And if that seems unfair to you,
once it's
fine.
Once the evidence is there and you know that player is, like you said, just gone forever. And it's the players thing is whether Maxed is here or gone, most fans are not like specifically Maxed fans. You know, the Chinese scene doesn't have a lot of English speaking fans and stuff like that. Whereas some of our biggest names of all time were struck from the record forever, right? Because they did do it. And I mean, those are players that I'm sure all of us wish that never happened, you know? But once the evidence is there, then it happens. So yeah, don't worry about it, guys in the chat.
You know, one thing I made me a bit sad as well is that I honestly felt there was a lot of racism towards the overall Chinese scene and players because of the obviously the win trading thing that happened in WCS NA. And I touched this on my video real quick as well. And that's obviously, I think, what those guys did is really stupid, obviously, and that's cheating, and they deserve to get banned from competition for giving each other some free wins on the ladder. But people are making it sound like these are the exact same things, right? Like, yeah, they gave each other some wins on the ladder. But this is, I think, so much more serious, and I think this is so much worse because at this point, this is straight up criminal activity, right? If you're accepting money to lose and then other people are betting on the results, like what the other guys did is stupid and they deserve to get punished and banned. But this is obviously you're gone forever. You're erased from the history books, and it's the end of the career. And that's why I think I don't think you can just put 2 and 2 together. And people are like, oh, these Chinese guys did this. It's very likely that this Chinese guy did this as well. And then people are like, don't trust WSG either because it's a Chinese investigation. It's like, whoa, man, like this is all pretty messed up to read. This is so not okay to say.
You're probably all Dutch people, to be fair, but
yeah, we all smoke weed all the time, and I'm high as we speak.
Yeah, obviously I don't want to open up too much of a can of worms there with that, but it is worth mentioning, like, you know, careful how you talk about these things and watch it. But all right, well, I thought this is an interesting topic, obviously, like I said, and again, hopefully it gets resolved, but maybe not, maybe it never will, and this is just something that we're gonna have to kind of that's competition. Have it in your mind. If you're out there dropping $300 bets on single maps getting dropped between a guy named 7091 and Max said, then man, crazy shit can happen. Let's move on to the demuslim subject. This is a big one, obviously. So again, for those of you just joining us, to lay the groundwork for this real quick, Terran has been struggling. A lot of people have been talking about Terran, Terran players in particular, obviously. We want to have Terran episode. This is not it, but we have a very talented and eloquent Terran player here who streams very much so. He's one of the most watched streamers as well. So we're going to talk balance, and this is where I once again kind of remind everyone to keep it as civil as possible. There's a bunch of mods in the chat. If you're getting really angsty, or you're calling out the Muslim, or you're calling out Rotti or myself or Dan, and getting kind of, if you try to make it mean, you're just gonna get timed out or banned. So I'm gonna, that's the warning. Zombie Grub Maynard, they got some of the banniest of fingers. I've seen their hands. They're made for banning. Okay, so please. It doesn't mean you have to agree with everything Ben or we say, but it means you say it with a certain amount of respect. And this is like, if you think Big Poppy Jeff's being weird, just trust me. When balance gets talked about, this kind of thing needs to be said. Also, it's just worth mentioning, Ben's not here to be ambushed or ganged up on. Everyone always points this out. We're Protoss players, and he's Terran. But if you can imagine, if you can pluck your hat of creativity on your little noggin, even though I prefer a race, I still have thoughts and feelings about the other races. And if you can imagine, I wouldn't want just Protoss to win every game, because that would make for a shitty game. Now, I know that's crazy, but for some people, it seems like this weird stretch. So we're going to have other Terran guests on as well, and maybe we will have that full-on Terran episode, but it's hard to get Terran players into one place because they're so afraid for their lives at most times. So
They're flighty.
They're flighty. So that's that. Okay, so that's laying the groundwork. Ben, Terran have been struggling a little bit. You've had some thoughts on your stream. You're even playing some Zerg. And you've talked about wanting to play Protoss. Just give, I don't know how we enter into this, but let's talk. I think one of the best places I'd like to start, and other guys might have different ideas, is like, what changes to Terran would help them out? Because a lot of people have ideas.
Well, I
wow.
want to. If you want to talk about changes, though, definitely tell us why.
Oh, yeah.
What's actually wrong then that would
Sure.
require this change? Because I would like to hear that.
One thing I would absolutely like to bring up before I bring up anything, though, is like I really feel that the patch changes that they've listed so far have been absolutely missing the mark. Like, I mean, the most recent one has kind of said they're going to extend the Forge upgrade timings, but also the Cybernetics core upgrade timings, which I don't know anybody at all that was complaining about how long the Cybernetics core upgrades took to upgrade for the air units. Like, in what world does that affect anything in PvT? Like, no, it potentially just makes like Rotti more sad that like his Phoenix take longer to get at. But like, just weird change. So the last patch before this as well, where it was like, you know what, we're going to make Thors have one extra range against air. Like, we're really going to fix TVP late game with this, boys.
It
like,
helped, though, Ben. It helped.
The one thing it really did help with is now Thors destroy Broodlords. Like, didn't affect like I mean, you don't buff a unit that you never ever make in a matchup, right? And then they were like, okay, we're gonna make Warp Gate take less time. We're gonna nerf the blink cost. We're gonna make Robo. Like, it was all very weird. The one thing that they did attack that I think was like pretty good was the Adept took a little bit of extra time, because those forward gateway builds were like becoming very problematic. But I really think the most recent, like, we're gonna extend the duration of upgrades, only worsens a problem in that Terrans feel that they need to 2-base all in. And by the way, I just want to say, like, the win rates are pretty close to 50-50 in TVP. Like, I don't think Protoss is the strongest race in the game. I actually think Zerg right now is probably the best race, especially with the Nidus the way it is. But yeah, you can't say like, hey, look, we're going to fix TVP by making the 2-base all in have a wider window. Like, that doesn't make anybody happy. I don't think Protossers are happy hearing that, like, you have like the 2-base all in becomes a little bit stronger. I don't think they like hearing that late game's going to become even less accessible for both of you, not just the Terran. So I really do think that Blizzard need to go at this from a different angle entirely.
And it's tough, right? Because if I think back to good TVP matchups, I think I go where a lot of people do. 3-base-ish versus 3-base, big macro battles. Harassment's always been a bit problematic in PvT. It's like either too good for Protoss or it's too good for Terran, and I feel like that's really swinging. And then the rest of the game is kind of like one or the other, kind of coming back from that. But at the same time, when I think of probably the best matchup in StarCraft ever, ZVT, I think of it starting, and actually, to give credit where credit's due, Hero Marine was making this point. It starts with some pretty good back and forth micro action, and it just continues throughout the entire series, right? Is that possible in PvT? Can we get to a place where that's, or is it just a different matchup and we shouldn't expect the same things?
I think TVP suffers from the fact that Zerg is in the game, because both of these races need
I think
ways.
we all suffer from the fact that Circus in the
Just hear me out. Like, Protoss need a method of slowing down Zerg. Like, you need to slow down their economy, because their economy can spiral out of control. So you have things like Adept Harass, you have Oracles, you have lots of things, right? You have Phoenix, you have Archon drops. Terran also have the similar methods, like Hellions, Banshee, blah, blah, blah. But when you get Terran and Protoss collide, where it's like, okay, now we both have options of slowing down our opponent, but you have like the Protoss economy that's slightly better. But there's also ways where it's like, okay, how do I stop this Cloak Banshee that's like a big investment? It's like, okay, I can put a shield battery here, I can put a shield battery there. I'm also on 3 bases, so it like doesn't really cost that much in the long run. And it's like, okay, how do I hold off these Phoenix? It's like those Phoenix can, you won't really lose them as an opening, but to buff Terran, like if you buff anything about Terran, or let's say you nerf Chrono Boost, again, all it does is make the 2 base stronger. So like whenever I've thought about like how can you actually do it, overall you have to nerf Zerg in some way. I know they're nerfing the Nidus, but you have to nerf Zerg in some way. You also have to nerf something of Terran like the Raven, because you definitely have to make the 2 base push less strong. But you could also do things like, you know how reactors take as long as they do? There's so much stuff in StarCraft 2 that has been the same way for so long. For example, like Stim takes as long as it does. I think things like the Forge upgrade costs are something that they haven't looked at for a long time. Like the Forge upgrades actually benefit the most units in the game, but they also are the equal cheapest in the game, which I think that is something that could potentially be looked at a little bit more, as opposed to making the upgrades take longer. I think like reactors for Terran buildings to get going, like you think about every gateway that you add on, right? It's 150 minerals. And then your probe goes back home after making like 4 or 5 of them. For Terran, it's like 5 SCVs, go out and make those. And it's like, okay, we lost mining because we're doing that. And then it's like, okay, then we have to make the reactors as well, or the tech labs, which again costs extra. And it's like, even if the economies are very, very similar, these things all cost a lot extra for Terran to do. So talking about that late game situation, even if you ignore the fact the way the units collide and stuff, like you never want to play against Tempest late game, because how do you deal with that in its current state for Terran? It's very, very difficult. I definitely think they need to take a real look at this. Like, do we make the orbital take less time to morph into an orbital? And I'm not saying that it needs to be like half. I'm talking about like, let's see how 3 or 4 seconds off it works. Let's see how nerfing Chrono Boost a little bit. Let's see how nerfing like Zerg macro a little bit. Like, but there's so much stuff that you need to do, I really feel, to try and make TVP more enjoyable.
Oh, okay, hold on a second though, because like you're making a lot of points that sound good, but can you say what is actually wrong with TVP? Because you haven't said that at all. Like there's like almost like you want us to just understand what's inside your head.
I hear a lot of the economy differential is upsetting to you, right?
Yeah. So one thing that is very, very different from, and I'll bring up Heart of the Swarm, because I think Heart of the Swarm went through a lot of phases of TVP that were pretty bad for the matchup, but also kind of like a good general understanding of how it went. Terran would always be ahead in supply and would always take a 3rd base faster than Protoss. Like, I guess you guys remember the 160, 170 supply SCV all-ins against like 120 supply Protoss.
God damn it.
And like the Protoss relied thoroughly on like 2 or 3 Colossi. If you could keep those alive, you won. If they died, like it was game over. Then Terran started saying like, okay, I'm not even going to make Vikings. I'm just going to drop everywhere, like Maru style, like all over the army. Legacy of the Void came and the supplies got a lot closer. And you also had things like Adepts come into the mix. I mean, Tempests were also a unit, but they were a bit different when they first came in. They had even further range from what I remember. But if we go back to like very recent history, one thing that happened last year was like the proxy phase came in of like factory reactor cyclone, and that was something that Protoss really feared. And you obviously had to scout for it, right? Like you had to know what kind of was hitting you. And I feel that was one way to really kind of make a Protoss say like, hey, what I have to make choices here in order to fend this off. Is it going to be like a Widowmine follow-up, blah, blah, blah. Either way, as soon as you remove that and made the Cyclone different and require a tech lab, all kind of fear was gone for a Protoss. In fact, I don't even think you necessarily have to probe scout at all in that matchup anymore because there's nothing that can straight up kill you. The shield battery helps a lot for these pushes. I think in general, chrono boosting out units helps a lot. Adepts are very good against units early on. And so removing that fear from Protoss. Also, if we remember like Widowmines, you no longer need detection. So a lot of your tech choices are like, you can just do it. You can go Stargate and just go Phoenix. You don't have to worry about an Oracle because even if Widowmines land in your base, you're going to clean them up. Same with Blink openings, same with like Immortal openings. So I feel that now the supplies are far closer, except now it's Protoss taking their third base much faster. So you've had a massive swing in the economy with the mule nerfs, the chrono boost buffs, by the way, like since that moment in time. And so the way that Terran looks at it is like, wow, I am just in a far worse economic situation here with nothing really to scare a Protoss from doing this. So they can always get to this kind of situation because I can't think of anything else that will slow them down. And so the kind of best thing that I can opt for in this situation is shutting it down before it all really gets going with a 2-base all-in. And I feel that the macro game is way too scary to get into.
So you want harass buffed is an idea then?
Wait 1 second. I'm still a little bit confused about exactly what it is that you think is wrong. I feel like you didn't actually say it. Like you drew pictures around what you think is wrong, but you didn't say what you think is wrong.
I feel that 2-base all-in is too strong for Terran, and I feel the economy ramps up too fast for Protoss.
Okay, let me think about that for a moment. Please go ahead and
Kevin,
talk to Jeff.
any questions for
All
him?
right, so like Ben is basically saying two things, right? And that he would like to see, and I can absolutely get behind either. I think there is one. I think there are ways to fix the current TVP, and we'll talk about that. But like where he started is basically kind of redesigning the whole Terran race, you know. And I'm not against that because I am absolutely always for big changes of StarCraft. But obviously that becomes a lot more complicated, and I don't think we're going to figure it out right here, right now on the ThePylonShow. If you really want to, you know, change everything about reactors and orbitals, because you know that's where we get, I think, a little bit carried away, and that's something that will need to take longer, maybe an end of the year patch. But what I never understood, and I spoke a lot about this with Pig, and I think with Ben as well at IEM, is that Widowmine nerf back then. Now I'm a Protoss player, so obviously it was a very pleasant surprise. But it was just the weirdest thing. Because if I think back of, let's say, a U-Thermal versus Neep final, right, at the Intel Extreme Masters back then, I feel like those games and the economies were kept in check because of how strong Terran harassment was with Liberators, 2-shotting Stalkers, and Widowmines is something you really have to respect. If you ignore them, they're going to stay there forever, and Terran doesn't lose that investment immediately. And it also forces out observers, and not just one, but multiple observers. And I really felt that forced Protoss to be a little less greedy, and that kept the economies more fair. To me, it was the weirdest change because no Protoss ever said Widowmine should actually be revealed after they shot once. I've never seen any Protoss player in the history of StarCraft to say that, and I think those are the two changes that really had the biggest impact in what suddenly allowed Protoss to go free like a butterfly and made it so much harder for Terran because you do your mine drop, mines get revealed, mines get picked off. And I think if you revert those two things, yeah, maybe Terran is even a tiny bit too strong in some scenarios there, but I would like to see how that goes out because those are two changes that nobody asked for, but have a massive impact in my opinion.
And it's in a better state now. Part of the reason why Protosses did complain, they didn't complain that you couldn't see the Widowmine. They complained that you had to kind of go robo because Terrans were just always Widowmine dropping. You needed detection, but now the robo's cheaper, and I think that was an actual better answer for that as opposed to nerfing Terran. Give Protoss a cheaper access to that thing. Because here's the thing, and this is whenever we talk balance, we forget we can complain about our own race and this weird things, right? Like cost of add-ons for Terran. It's kind of a laborious race. Yeah, I'm okay with talking about that, and that's fine. Protoss, we have to pay $25.75 for an observer just to detect things. That's also kind of silly, but everybody has that, right? So that's why I thought it was a really cool change when they made the Robo less expensive while also trying to make it the Immortal more expensive. That was a really good change because otherwise you'd see more Proxy Immortal, and I think we're seeing less of that these days. But that also gives us better access to observers, which rewards a more positioned Protoss player against Widowmine Harass. But at least I feel like I built this observer for a reason now, and then the Terran is rewarded for punishing a Protoss player that doesn't have that fear that Ben's talking about, right?
I also, by the way, I think that mines were so much cooler back then, where you'd have like multiple mines and you would have these CVT battles back and forth, but overseers would die and then like the mines would reset. I think it made for exciting moments. And now mines are just so sad. And I saw a couple of people say this in the chat as well, and I forgot who told me this, but saying that they back then nerfed the mine as a change for the lower league players because they were mostly complaining about widow mines. But I feel that lower league players complain about a lot of things, right? They will always complain about Storm. They will always complain about oracles. They'll always complain about basically
Void
anything
Race.
that can do
Void
void.
Race.
Yeah.
Prismatic alignment, man, it's so good. No, but like that's the thing, though. I feel like that was one of the biggest nerfs ever to Terran that the other races really did not request at all, and it just kind of got thrown in there, and we just accepted it. I mean, Zerg and Protoss quietly accepted it, and Terran is like, hey, is this really necessary? And yeah, we kind of just stuck with it.
That shut down so many of the cool openings too. Like I remember the medevac with a Widowmine and 6 Marines at a third base of a Zerg kind of thing, and it could hold on for a little time. Like there were so many cool skirmishes that you could do, and even that drop against Protoss, like you never see that drop anymore.
No.
So I think we feel pretty.
I agree with your guys' assessment about the widow mines and stuff, but so just to jump back to what you said was wrong, because I'm having a little bit of a hard time with it. So you feel like Protoss should always be taking a third because it's easy to take, and then Terran 2 base all in is the best strategy. Is this
because late game Protoss is too hard for them to deal with?
Okay, but yeah, the Terran 2 base all in, yeah, like I see what you mean. Like a lot of people pull that. I don't know if you watched the games last night.
Yes,
like
Innovation,
map on Cyber Forest where he went through the center and it was just sad. But
I mean the macro games are sadder.
Well, I mean, as games like as metagames normalize and even like basically the longer a game is in a solid position, you get more towards more bases, right? That's always the way RTS goes, is like more towards more bases. So I think that we're seeing a lot of third bases. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. And the thing is, you liken a lot of it to the HOTS, what was going on in HOTS. And I think it's like kind of a good comparison because that was very straightforward. Because you're right, like every game was a giant SCV pull and trying to keep your Colossus alive against all the Vikings and stuff. And maybe you'd try to sneak in Storm or something. There wasn't like a big range there. But I mean, that was totally crappy. So I'm glad that things are changing from there, right?
Right, but the main difference I wanted to point out with that was the economies and how fast they spiraled, because that was the Terran getting out of control with like a huge supply, whereas now it's far closer, but without any adjustment to the units. And in fact, we're losing value for things like Widow Mines, and we're gaining value by having things like Adepts. Also, the ticking time bomb of having the Tempest in the late game, which we didn't have. So yeah, it's definitely shifted, but without really much compensation. So I feel that if you do that kind of thing, like you have to have some kind of give and take,
Well, I think it's interesting.
I also think one more thing, real quick, is that back then a lot of the maps in general were a lot smaller. Smaller maps, I think, in general are better for Terran. Their pushes hit harder and faster, and their initial Widow Mine drop arrives a lot quicker. The bigger the map, the easier it is for the Protoss player to defend, and the easier it is to go for 3 bases, and the easier the economy spirals out of control. So I think that has a lot to do with almost everything as well.
You know what's funny too? I was thinking about this. Back then, we also had 4-player maps. We have none now.
Mm-hmm.
That is true.
I don't know how that affects us, but we actually have 0 in any map pool. And I'm okay with that because pro gamers complain a lot about that, obviously. But that's interesting, right? Like every map is 1v1.
Protoss also had to make Mothership Core, which was a pretty big investment for what it did. Like that didn't help your macro really at all. It was just something defensive, right?
Yeah, I really do agree with the Widow Mines things that you guys have been saying. That definitely kind of made the economies tighter and had some interesting things. I think that they made it reveal to open up tech avenues for Protoss. But yeah, that aside, it's interesting to me that you're like the thing that you're finding the problem with is the third base and having used 2 base all-in timings against that, because it feels like the crux of the argument is closer to the Tempest is too strong. Like what you're saying that everything leads to.
It's no,
because you're naming all these Protoss units, right?
So,
Hold on. You're naming all these Protoss units, but like you do have the Liberator late game, but what deals with that? It's the Tempest. Like for instance, if you look at Innovation not moving out of his base at all last night, right? What was the actual problem? It was timely Tempest. So like I mean, I'm a little bit confused about the way that you're saying this, because if you have to do a 2 base all in, that means that you think that late game is imbalanced, right? So it's not about necessarily, or no? Okay, explain.
No. So like if we did a role reversal, and by the way, like one thing that I really wanted to point out, like both Protoss and Terran, the way that they are, have really good harass tools, right? Like Zerg is the race that doesn't really have the same level of harass. Like Banshees and Oracles very cool. Like Hellions, Stalkers are super cool for that. Adepts, one of the best. Widowmine drops, obviously. So when you have 2 races that clash as they do, like Terran and Protoss, I always feel that like if you an Oracle can always get away and always serves a later game purpose, right? Like Stasises, Revelation, like if it doesn't deal economic damage. A lot of the things like Terran right now, it's like if you get your Widowmine drops in, they don't serve a later purpose. Like that medevac often dies, the Widowmines often die. There's always something to fall back on. Within regards to taking a third faster and getting like that 60 probe count to like, the 46 SCVs, it isn't all about like the end game Tempest. It's about having such a strong mid game and like a really, really stocky army. Like a lot of the ways that you try and be that is dropping everywhere and stuff, but you have so much everywhere and a really, really good setup. And about the point that I wanted to make about both of them having attack patterns, the innovation against SOS game on, I think it was Kairos Junction, where he took the weird third, right?
Yeah.
But then innovation was sat back. He sent 1 unit to attack, which was a Viking, and he was defending with tanks and Marines, and he totally lost his natural to a Stalker attack. Like there are very easy ways to just get absolutely thwarted, even though you're using just one, not a Widowmine drop with like 3 Widowmines in it, just 1 Viking. That was enough for him to be like, whoa, I am just getting overwhelmed by this guy that's playing like a little bit weird here with these Stalkers and this Warp Prism. Like
the Viking at home does not help in that defense. Yeah, that was like a very brutal attack that came in, right? Like he jumped right on the bunker and all this. Innovation didn't see it coming at first.
He played macro like a lot of those games, and he played against very, very different styles and lost against very, very different styles. I think SOS showcased the vulnerability of trying to play macro and defensive. I think Trap also showcased the fact that like if you do this and you want to sit, I don't have to kill you now. I'm just gonna have a really good army before you have a good army. And even though Innovation got to like 200 supply with the Liberators, he could never move out his base at all. He was getting picked apart from like, just a superior army comp. Like, but the question is, how do you get an army comp that deals with that? But the main situation that you have as a Terran is there are so many ways for a Protoss to slow you down while taking a third. There is no way for a Terran to slow you down taking a third. And so you have this weird dynamic where it's like, what is the best choice? Because they all feel bad. So the win rates are close to 50-50, absolutely. Because again, the 2-base builds are strong, but it is not on Terran to take a third. It is always on the Protoss, which it feels very bad as a Terran, because often, let's say I choose tanks, and he's foregoing Colossus. He's just going like pure charge. It's like, well, fuck. I'm like throwing darts at a dartboard. If he went Colossus and I went Raven, I'd feel really good. If I went Raven and he went Mash Charge like Stalker, I kind of like, we're both making decisions without really seeing anything, and we can both win or lose based on like before we even know it's a wrong choice. And I feel that sucks on both counts.
Yeah, you don't want games that are kind of like blind choices, but I think that the way that you talk about it is like really hyperbolic, where it's like, oh, there's nothing you can do, or like if they take the third, there's no way to slow it down. It's like, yeah, TVP I think is harder for the Terran for sure, but there's always matchups like that, right? Where it's like the onus is on somebody. It's a little bit more difficult. You almost have to be like, Bruce Lee's water or something. Like, it's like, yeah, Protoss gets to take their third first. It's
But can you show me an example where a Protoss is stopped from taking his third from a Terran, like just a normal build?
Can you show me a professional level game between two professional level players that I can analyze and take a look and show me that this is imbalance and that there's not mistakes?
No, I'm not saying it's imbalance. It's the way it is. It's not about no. This isn't about imbalance. But like you're saying that
game design. You're saying right?
Just yeah. Like like in 90% of my games, when a Protoss takes a third, there isn't any real timing where I'm like, okay, I can stop that from happening with like this tool, that tool. Like I don't feel that a Protoss feels that he can't take a third at like the 440 minute mark. Like it's just not something that happens. So it really becomes that like Zerg scenario where a Zerg's defending because they take a third faster against a Terran, right? Like that's just what happens. But the Terran's best weapon to stop that at the moment is a 2-base all-in before it really, really gets rolling. Because the economies are like, they're pretty similar. Like you have two graphs that go like this, right? And then the third kicks in and it's like that. And like the Terran really tries to hit before that really kind of like spikes up kind of thing. But in my experience and from what I've seen game-wise, I don't think there's any way to really stop a Protoss from taking a third as it currently is.
But does there have to be a way to stop the third? Like sometimes we put values on things that we don't like or that we're uncomfortable with. In this case, maybe that's something that's occurring with that third base. Maybe it's just the third always goes up, just like a Zerg third always goes up against Protoss. They just make the third, and you're like, yep, I can't stop that. That's okay, though, because now I played this portion of the game, right?
What are you asking for exactly?
So he's asking, and I'm not trying to gang up, I'm just trying to clarify for people. He's asking, is it acceptable to understand that in this matchup that will happen, and can we move beyond that for something else? He's saying, is the third being taken by Protoss a part of that matchup at that time? Do you have to be able to stop it?
No, you don't. You have to 2-base all in it.
You think so?
With taking, I really think that's the best shot right now. Like everything else, like.
Okay. I think I see what you're saying. Like you feel that this is for sure the highest % chance to win is the 2-base all-in.
And then absolutely. I think, again, trying to connect dots here, you're saying pretty much one of the biggest offenders is the Tempest after that third base, right?
So if you don't do a 2-base all-in and you choose to play a macro game, you are a little bit behind and you're also on a clock. Like that slows down a lot of your aggressive potential to the point where you're no longer really playing. You're almost playing a campaign game where you're just building up like against the computer. And if you're both allowed to build up, like the main situation in TVP is, okay, Protoss gets to 3-base. What 2-base all-in are they throwing at me? And I say 2-base all-in, you are taking a third as you push because the push is meant to wound critically, in which you kind of reset the Protoss while teching. And the successful games that I've seen of like 2-base all-ins where they take a third behind, they'll follow up with like, they won't even go past 1-1 upgrades as a Terran. It'll be like 1 engineering bay. It'll be like double starport reactor liberators. And they really go with the tempo of the game, you know? Mm-hmm. But for me personally, when asked about like the current state of Terran, I just would like more options than just doing that. Because honestly, like, I don't think it feels good for a Protoss just getting all-in every game by Terrans, be it like Cloak, Banshee, Marine, Tank. I think that's really fucking strong. I don't think it really feels good when you get your 2 Colossi interference matrix and you just lose. And it doesn't feel good for a Terran when I just run into like, you know, a Phoenix opener when I'm going for a Raven opener. It's just like, I've made poor decisions, but they weren't, like they could have been great decisions. That just shouldn't happen in StarCraft 2. Like that's just down to pure luck. And I know luck is always going to be in RTS, but it shouldn't define games. It shouldn't always define games, I mean.
Rotti, we haven't heard from you in a minute.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed the back and forth there. I don't know. I think that Ben makes a lot of good points. I also think what Dan said, I think that is actually very interesting. I haven't really thought about it yet. Like, is it necessarily a problem if Protoss has, let's say, a 4-minute, 40-second third base? Yeah, obviously right now it is, because this is why I was smiling, by the way. People thought I was smiling because I was angry, but I like Ben's. Whoop. I just thought it was a great visualization of the graphs. But I think what Dan said there is okay as well. What if we can just live with that? Like, obviously, in PvZ, Zerg always expands faster, right? But we're all okay with that because we know that Zerg needs that, and then Protoss will do something about it. If Terran can just get some different tools, yeah, Protoss can expand faster. But what if Terran will have other things to combat that? Like, why is it necessarily like, okay, we have to two-base all in? Because that's the way it is right now. But that's why it goes back to, obviously, something has to change. And whatever you want to change, you can work with SCV time, you can work with orbitals. I really think certain units in certain phases of the game, because I believe that if you make the mind stronger again, or anything else stronger, I think that will slow everything else down. And I think that will truly balance things out. And then I don't believe you suddenly have to worry about Tempest, because that's not like the next step, but that's 3 steps from that phase in the game. So yeah, I think maybe we should be okay with Protoss going up to 3 bases fast. Just give Terran a better way to fight it. And let's see how the game plays out then, right? Because yeah, why not?
And I don't disagree, actually, I think, with anything that the Muslim is actually saying here, where, like, yeah, I think that 2 base all in, it's very common and it's right there and it's very specific and everyone knows how to do it. And it has, I think you're right, the highest win rate at the moment. And it's hard to find those other paths. The thing is, I think that those other paths do exist. It's just, it's very complicated. It's very hard to pull them off correctly. And I mean, I kind of agree with the Widowmine assessment. I actually kind of liked it when they were cloaked. It was like this very interesting little back and forth with the Widowmine drop coming in at 420 or whatever. And, you know, it was,
Took 'em up.
that was a cool time. But, yeah, like, I think that this stuff isn't necessarily due to imbalance. Yeah, I think it's a little bit harder on the Terran end if you're not doing the all-ins. If you pull the SCVs and do the all-in, it's not like that is a particularly hard thing. You know, you pull your units and you go, right? And you're doing an attack, you're saying, okay, we're going to decide it here. I don't think it absolutely has to be decided there. I think a lot of people feel like it does because of the ominous late game composition of a lot of splash damage from Protoss. But
I think one thing that I hear from a lot of Terrans that's kind of the most compelling argument for me is that they very often say the matchup's just not fun. And I think there are ways to make it more fun. Because like Ben said, the balance is pretty close. It's 50-50. But at the higher up you go in TVP, it's a lot of exactly what he just said, which is just like a 2-base all-in. And yeah, if you have those Ravens, that's fantastic. If they did try to tech, but if they just went mass charge lot Stalker and you have any tech whatsoever, you're in a lot. You know, it becomes very in the dark and back and forth like that. And I do think that it would be fun to look at the matchup in a different way too, as opposed to nerfing something, because that was what we start with. That is kind of unfortunate, right? Like who? Because that's the thing. Oftentimes when Blizzard does a balance thing, it's they put together a bunch of pro gamers and are like, what is the issue? Let's talk about this. But who is talking about Cybernetics core upgrades? Like who? What collection of people said that? Nobody. There's nothing. So that's the part that can be a little bit of a gut punch, I think, for Terran players in particular, where they're like, hey, we need help. And the Blizzard comes out and they're like, how about Cybernetics core upgrades being slowed down by 10 seconds? And then they're like,
and that's what I really wanted to like hone in on. Like, I feel that I feel Blizzard are just exacerbating a problem in the matchup, right? I mean, Cybernetics core upgrades that was the weirdest change besides the Thor change. But the Forge upgrades taking longer, like that just makes Protoss feel a bit more uneasy against like these timing windows that Terran have now. It makes Terran feel like, well, I'm kind of getting more pushed down this hole that I really don't want to be in. I think you talked about how Terran players aren't finding it fun, but I don't think Protoss players are really having that much fun getting all in all the time. And I mean, sure, they have fun in the macro games and stuff, but you're not really going to see them at all very often. I mean, like
Yeah.
the best displays that you have are Maru putting on an absolute clip. By the way, that's also something that's really sad about TVP. When it is played super duper tip top level, because I think Maru put on a clinic of how you can play TVP on the best map for it, by the way. And Neeb, like, he didn't play up to scratch. His unit composition and stuff wasn't the best, but TVP can be really freaking cool.
yeah,
And we're all missing that. Like, I will always look
snipes,
back at
EMP, storms.
MVP versus Squirtle on that like Metropolis map or Metalopolis, whatever it was, like the cool the BC Arc on toilet game, you know, like I miss epic fights like that. Now I'm kind of I miss TVP and I'm mainly sad about what it can be.
You know what's tough about that too, Demo? I mean, it's a rough example because that did have tasteless commentating. He studied multiple subjects in college. And it's like, oftentimes, no. This has been really great, and I hope we have more of this. I'm going to give it a round of final thoughts, but I am the guy that has to protect our European guests and make sure that we don't rope them into a 5-hour episode. So this has been wonderful. Thank you. I want to give a shout out to the chat as well for being very civil, and you guys for having this talk. But final thoughts on hopes and wishes and thoughts on TVP. We'll go around real quick, and then we're going to speed through the rest of the show because these guys do have souls, at least so far.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
Ben, we're going to end with you. I want to, Kevin, you've been the most quiet in this segment. I mean, for you, the matchup, where would you like to see it go? What would you like to see changed?
Well, I think I already went over all the things I'd like to see changed and where I think we can potentially go. But there's one last thing I want to add. I know certain people like to think that the level of StarCraft is going down, but that's absolutely not true. Like, people get better and better, and people figure things out, and people are a lot better than they used to be. What if right now we have just reached a level with the current balance where slightly on the very small map, yeah, Terran is very good against Protoss because of these strong 2-base all-ins. But if the maps get too big, Protoss is very good because of the economic advantage, and most maps are on the slightly bigger size. Maybe this is just like actually the biggest issue at the moment with the way the game is currently being played. And maybe that should be taking a look at, because obviously the way that it goes on right now, I don't know, like whatever change you're going to make, I think that theory will still stand. And I don't know if that is necessarily the way that we want to play this game. So I think that's something that nobody really thinks about, but people are just a lot smoother in the transitions. People are smoother in hitting their timings. People get more value out of all their units. And I really think that map size is more important than it's ever been before, especially in this matchup.
Dan, anything to add?
Okay. Yeah, I want to take what Rotti said and point out that Brood War hasn't had a patch in like 19 years, and it's all done through maps. So there'd be maps that are quite favored in one matchup or the other, and that's kind of makes it interesting because you'll mix up your play more on a harder map, and then you'll play a more standard game on a normal map, or vice versa via mind game. So I think that definitely maps are a very interesting part of this discussion. Yeah, so that's I think that's cool, and I think that maps should contribute a lot to balance. Like, you don't want a bland ass map where we're like, all right, we're going to balance the game around 50% every matchup on this map. That would be the worst thing you could do to StarCraft, in my opinion. So, but I think overall people get way too emotional discussing balance in general. I think that the Muslim brings up a lot of great points here that are really interesting about the way it's actually played and like how we might be able to make it better without getting all emotional and being like, oh, this is imbalanced and like Protoss is too strong. That many people do things like that, and I think that's kind of foolish and can be proven elsewise. But yeah, there you go.
Ben, thank you so much for doing this this segment. I know it's like Dan just said, it's tough, right? And anytime someone talks balance, people just always kind of glob it into whining. But I think this is a really great discussion. Is there any final points you want to kind of illustrate as we wrap up this topic?
No, just bouncing off from what Dan said. Often it feels like political parties when you talk about your race, right? And you don't really get anywhere when you're talking with people of the other race. But fundamentally, we all love StarCraft, and we all just want it to be like the best game that it possibly can be and enjoy it as much as we can. And honestly, if we really get down to it, StarCraft's in a pretty damn good place right now. Like, they've talked about how they're nerfing the Nidus because the Nidus was pretty fucking awful. Like, but they are doing a lot of good changes, and StarCraft is a really good game. I like the Widowmine like talk, but yeah, I'm glad that we can see some nice middle ground with things, because I don't think extending the Cybernetics Core or Forge upgrades is a good nerf at all. I think it's really, really bad, actually. Like, doesn't make sense at all to me. But thank you for the talk, and I appreciate it, honestly.
That was really good.
Also, I hope I did a good job. Like, I know there are a lot of whiny players out there, not just Terrans, but it's nice that we can talk about this pretty civilized about. Yeah.
We always try to have a nice, collection of different people on the show, and I think you did a great job. So we'll keep trying to do that. That's it for balance for now. But again, I assume there'll be a lot of talk about it in the various different threads and on YouTube. We encourage you to do it, but just again, please be civil about it and nice, because it's a nice conversation for us to have. But if it turns super nasty, which it didn't, then it's not nice to have, and that would be something we would
and
not want to do.
If we can have good quality conversations around the way the game is and not just balance whining, then maybe we won't get stupid things like Cybernetics Core upgrades being nerfed, and we'll actually get something worthwhile like these guys bring up.
Like Thor range upgrades, you know?
Yeah, there you go. That's the
Well
one.
done. All right, we're going to speed through a couple of things, but another reason we brought DeMuslim on is that he did cast one of his first events in a while. So, Ben, how was it? How was casting? I know that we know that behind the scenes a little bit you were a little bit nervous, but you ended up I thought did a great job. And now that you've kind of had some time to step away from it, how was it for you?
I didn't realize how incredibly anxious I was going to be about it. Like I spoke to the guys at IEM. I mean, I've casted events, but they've been very sporadic, like nothing super consistent. And I didn't think I was getting the gig. It got to like 3 weeks beforehand. And I was so happy. Like, I actually thought I wasn't going to get it. Like, they didn't get back to me, but then they did. And I was so relieved, so happy, so thrilled. Like, I immediately went and told Alice. And yeah, I was super excited. And then I was met by like just pure nerves because the announcement then came a few weeks later. And it was like, no Artosis and Tasteless, fucking the Muslim, like this whiny asshole is coming to like, and I was
That's
like,
just what Rotterdam said. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't reply to any of it because it's like, okay, I know there's going to be a lot of haters. There's also going to be a lot of like likers and stuff. And I was reading through comments because, as soon as you read one, it's like, okay, yeah, fuck it, let's read them all. And it was like, I saw, I had quite a lot of fans actually that were like, oh, he won't whine on a professional broadcast and stuff. And I actually think I did a really good job of like, not like a lot of the image that you can get of a streamer and stuff is like them losing like 10 games in a row against a certain thing. And it's like, they're frustrated, like you get the worst side of people sometimes. That is not what they're going to be like on a professional setting. So like, a lot of the people were like, they respond and say, I don't think he's going to whine. And some guy's like, I heard him whine at Home Story Cup, this fucking idiot. And it's like, wow, you're going to take Home Story Cup as the like be all and end all of professionalism and stuff. But no, when it came around to the event, yeah, I didn't sleep for the first 2 nights. I tried very hard. But I had an absolute ball of a time. Like, it was amazing. You guys all made it very easy on me. I also got like a lot of tips from Kev, and I felt like I progressed a lot during the event. And yeah, I'd love to cast more in the future. Honestly, it's so fun talking about something that you're still like very, very in love with, and I just hope that shone through. And yeah, I loved it.
One of my favorite DeMuslim story moments from this event was we were standing outside the hotel waiting for our shuttles to go to the airport to go home, and an ESL guy walks up. It's like smoking a cigarette, kind of looks at us like, Jeff, good to see you.
Gentlemen.
He's like, Ben, did you commentate this one, right? He's like, yeah. He's like, did they just weren't able, they just weren't able to hire like the other guys, like Nathanius or any of the other commentators they usually do? And Ben, who's this prim proper British man, like this is like rude beyond rude, so he's just like, I don't know, I suppose not. And he's like, and then this guy's like, yeah, I guess you're pretty good too, though, right? Otherwise you wouldn't be here. And Ben's just like, it's just like waves of just what the fuck, and he's like, I guess not. And he's like, well, anyways, safe travels. And he like walked away. I loved it because it's just like such an amazing. If you don't do an event and have these weird interactions where someone comes up and is like, you're not my favorite. How come not favorite here? Why not? And then you're like, why are you asking me? And they're like, don't be a dick. Fuck off. And then they like walk away. You're just like, that's it. Ben almost went a whole event without that kind of interaction. And then just in that last minute, a guy came over and put you in that spot. And that was...
And it was a guy that worked there too.
I know.
It was like, oh, they couldn't get this guy. Oh, they couldn't get them either. Oh, okay. And like, I was so hungover that morning as well, waiting for you. And it was even worse, like,
I loved it because he realized what he said was kind of weird, and he had a momentary pause, and then you didn't save him at all because this guy's like suffering, and you're just like, nah, fuck it, you made it weird. And then that guy's like, and I'm just there, and I just like said a silent prayer. I was like, thank you, God, this is so beautiful. I needed this, and then the day went on. It was just amazing. Anyways, yeah, great to have you, Ben. I thought you did a great job, and people seem to receive it really well. We are going to blitz, or even skip, I would say, but these guys do graphics, and I feel bad if we don't report on this, someone's going to like kill themselves or something like that, so we have to do it. Dan, real quickly, GSL and ASL,
Yo.
please.
GSO, we did a group yesterday. Innovation lost against 3 Protosses. Yeah, we have the next group coming up. Classic and Trap made it through, so our first 2 Protosses into the round of 8. We only need 2 more players. There's only 1 Zerg so far, and we have another Zerg giving it a try on Saturday, so 2 days from now. Like almost exactly 2 days from now. So check it out.
Yeah. Thank you. And what's happening on the Brood War side? What happened?
Okay, Brood War side, spoiler alert. The VOD of the finals got taken down for copyright. The bot that does YouTube right now is brutal on ASL videos. So it takes us generally 24 hours, I think, to get the video back online or something like that after we realize it goes down. It will be back online. Turn it off if you haven't heard this yet. Anyways, the finals occurred. Last beat Mini 3-1, becomes a dual champion. Yeah.
Good games or no?
It was, yeah, it was good games. I quite enjoyed the finals overall. It was not super long, 3-1, you know, but there was definitely some good ones in there, some back and forth plays for sure. But last showing he really is the second best Terran in the world, and that's a big championship for him. So ASL is going on hiatus for the KSL season. I don't know the exact start date of next ASL, but I do know KSL is coming right up. The qualifiers start this weekend. So I will tweet out everything when we are going live and stuff with those qualifiers.
Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry for being brief, guys, but we spent a lot of time with the meat and potato topics, and I care about my friends, so we're going to try to get through this part real quick. So now, we're into the Patreon Q&A section, and we'll go through this. Thank you guys so much. If, as Cobra's showing right now, if you are a Patreon supporter of the show at a $5 level or higher, you can go to our website, which is just ThePylonShow.com. I think I can say that. And then you'll actually enter into the Q&A part, and it'll give you a field where you ask the question, and then we answer it. So here we go. Let me look through these. Sebastian Dunn. Why don't Zerg saturate minerals as much as other races in Brood War? I don't understand the units they tend to use, or I understand the units they tend to use are gas limited, but can't they squeeze in drones so they can add more hatches, sunkens, links? Mechanical limit? Thanks. Dan?
No, it's not a mechanical limit. It just functions differently. Zerg units cost way less supply and way less money than other units of similar powers. So the economy plays very, 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 very differently from Protoss and Terran. You will occasionally see games where you get a big drone saturation going, but those are fewer and far between, because then you're spending so much time making those, then you have to make more static D because you don't have units to defend. It's just kind of the way the flow of the game works. The best Zerg players won't have heavy drone saturation except very rarely.
There you go. And for even more detailed answer, make sure and ask Dan in his chat when he streams, in which case he will promptly ignore you because he never reads the chat. Next question is from Gildlin. On a scale of 1 to a veto, how salty was special in this clip? The only reason I'm answering this question is because this is so silly to me, by the way.
Which clip is?
Is this the one where he actually handshakes, but people think he didn't? Or?
Exactly. Yeah. So this was a thread on Reddit, and people were like, really, he doesn't shake hands with Scarlet. You guys, A, they do shake hands. Mm-hmm. B, they're like really good friends. So even if they didn't, it would not be anything. It would be like he said something in person or whatever, and just things moved on. That was this reminded me of how much daytime television StarCraft is for some people at times, where they're like, did you notice they didn't shake hands? No, right there he did. He actually shook her hand.
It's always like I think the commentators brought it up though, that they did shake hands.
And Rapid's in the chat right now too.
Yeah, so like
it is Rapid's fault.
They always banter that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Rapid's not even a sub.
I must say, the first time I looked at the clip, I wasn't casting, by the way, but the first time I looked at it, I also thought they didn't. But then when I looked again, I was like, yeah, you can actually see that he does. It's just kind of hidden, you know. And obviously, normally you look at the other person, but obviously Juanito being a little upset. Yeah, it happens. But yeah, it's drama over nothing because they actually shook hands. So.
They actually shook hands. I promise you. All right.
But did you see how quickly he wiped his hands as she walked away? Could he really have done that if he had shaked her hand?
Dude. Yeah. And what is with wiping it? You know, what do we say from that? Ugh. Eric, are there any plans for an upcoming Pylon show matches? We've talked about it. We'll definitely work on that kind of thing. Right now, we're actually just traveling a whole crap of a ton. So there's, it's the kind of fun stuff we'll do in the future. But yeah, thank you for asking. Gunner, as the author of probably the longest question in the Q&A history, I approve on this method. Anyway, what's your favorite entertainment franchise excluding Starcraft? The Muslim, what is your favorite entertainment franchise outside of Starcraft? And Kevin, you can't say Feyenoord, just think of something else.
Dota 2, probably.
Dota 2. Okay. Yeah, do you still play that? You used to play a little bit of that.
I've started playing a little bit again, yeah.
Nice.
Can't get it out of my system.
Just waiting for the cybernetics nerfs to go through, I guess. Kevin.
Pornhub. No, kidding. What about, I can say just UFC, right? That's technically a franchise.
UFC your favorite? I would say Todd's in the chat, so that's a good answer. Todd's in the chat, it's a good answer. Dan, what do you do other than StarCraft? What's your favorite? And Jesus Christ, if you say water or something stupid like that.
Water. Outside of StarCraft, I pretty much read books and play a little bit of chess. But those aren't franchises, right?
Yeah. I mean, franchise
How
is
do
kind
you
of
fuck
weird.
this question up?
Because franchise, okay, if I can say Feyenoord, can I still say
go
a
to a
different
company.
team, even though football is my favorite sport? But I like everything. I like watching Dota. I wouldn't have said my favorite. I like MMA. I like NFL. I mean, that I love to watch your Seahawks with you as well. I like Formula One right now. I like to cheer for match and stuff. I watch everything, man. It's hard to pick one, to be honest.
It is hard to pick one, guys, and that's why you don't
The
give
Amazon
a fuck
Kindle,
and you just
is
pick
that-
one
is that a
anyways because it's a
franchise?
stupid question in a Q&A section at the end of a TV show about video games. The Muslim hit it out of the park. He's like, Dota 2, I play that game. And then did we go, but
I
is
don't
that
play any other
actually your
games.
favorite? Here's mine, Warhammer 40k. Love the lore.
I
Sci-fi
knew
is
that.
amazing.
That was an easy one for you.
Yeah, so
But
for you, it's like
Chess 40K. There you
Dune
go.
or some shit. You say Dune.
Yeah, I read the Dune books. Those were great.
Exactly. Kevin said UFC. It was a good answer, but then you guys struggled through that. It's like the hot dog situation all over again. Albert Zhang, can you guys give some color to what old personalities from State of the Game are up to nowadays? Related, I'd really love to see Noni come back on. Yeah, Noni's started streaming StarCraft again and is a super awesome guy, so maybe we'll have him back on. Artosis is here. Still,
Here I am. There's Jeff. Day9 does his shows. JP does his shows, and Idra lifts weights and does physics. There you go.
But what is
That's the whole
HD
crew.
StarCraft up to? That's the real question that you should have asked there. With the rise of Get Your Boats Ready and My Boy Amon, what other maps need their own catchphrases? And what would they be? Abyssal Reef? Steps of War? The Muslim?
Well,
What's a catchphrase for one of these maps, my man? What do we need?
I have no freaking clue.
Nope,
I didn't
nobody
even
has
know
any
that Get
clue.
Your Boats was one.
If you want a catchphrase, it has to be tasteless casting a map a bunch of times. It's the only way you get.
He just naturally generates.
Because he'll
those.
say something that's so stupid that I'll just start cracking up, and then it'll be a catchphrase. Like, get your boats ready.
Yeah. Hypertour, you ask a lot of questions.
So
We appreciate it. But we have
stupid.
nobody on this broadcast thinks that. Kevin, do you have any that I don't know of?
No.
No, we don't.
Catchphrases for maps? Huh.
Do you, Dan?
Get your boats ready, Jeff.
No. He says
Again.
specifically not copying Tasteless like you have the last 9 years. It's like your own.
Ooh.
Yeah, I got him.
No, right now I don't. And Nick comes up with them. Man.
He's
way
a multiple
smarter than me. I don't know.
subject
It's
study.
because he studied
He
multiple
studied
subjects.
multiple subjects in college. Jesus,
So,
I didn't want to
I
say it,
would
but
be
it's
the
like so
first
obvious.
to tell you that I'm dumb, so I can't do this by myself.
Dude, that was so amazing. Apior Imeson says, who's the coolest superhero and what superhero would be best in StarCraft besides the obvious answer of Flash?
We already have Flash in StarCraft, and he is the best superhero.
Yep.
The
real answer is the service people of the United States, the police officers, the firefighters, and the municipal service people.
I think it would be RoboCop. He would be the best superhero in StarCraft. Because he would do his little arm spike right into the computer and control it all with his mind.
Yeah.
So he would wreck. He would be so good.
He'd be pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and assume that Kevin and Ben could not care less. David Brown. Non-StarCraft related.
Captain America, okay.
Captain America, you guys.
At StarCraft?
Yeah.
I was thinking if it was playing Brood War where you couldn't change your hotkeys, like the stretch guy would be pretty good for hitting all over the keyboard.
He'd be a good Protoss player, yeah.
Yeah. You ever seen Dan's Pinky? He already exists.
Yeah.
Non-StarCraft related question: where is Demu from in the UK? For instance, his accent and warties are totally different.
Nottingham.
Nottingham.
It's actually not that far from Newcastle, though, is it? I mean, obviously it's
That's
not
quite
close.
a bit.
Is
Yeah.
Nottingham on the south side of London? It's north, right?
It's not even. It's Nottingham Central, but Newcastle's north.
Yeah, I know, but like
Wow.
Nottingham is north of London.
Oh yeah. But I mean,
So in a
everything's
way, it's closer
everything's technically north of London, like in England.
to
It's just
Southampton, is not.
well, that's Southampton.
Oh my
Kind of
God,
forgot about
what
the
a-
obvious joke here too. By the way, I think every guy to some degree is a stretch guy. Had to make a penis joke. Dan, you gotta laugh when I do. That's the co-host job there. Also, oh, it's such a bad laugh. We got two more questions. Phaedra Whitlock says, Rotti, Wardy sent out 2 tweets about an explosion in the studio. What was that about?
An explosion in the studio
Yeah.
in Ukraine?
Next question.
Must have been someone's mentality.
Explosion? No, I
Let me answer
can't
for
remember.
Roddy. It's like 6 a.m. his time, so he forgot. There was literally a fire in like the computer production room, and a guy ran in and was like, "Oh!" Roddy talked about it on stream, and then they kind of laughed. That was it. A machine caught fire, and the production went down for like 10 minutes or whatever, and they brought it back up. Roddy,
Yeah, no, I can't remember. Sorry.
the Muslim, what do you think is the best character impression in Control does? Oh,
I do like Red Eye.
I really like TLO as well. Though. TLO is good.
Oh, the one you did that Asus the first time. What was it? Asus in
which
Finland?
Ben was that?
Yeah.
Were you? No, that was
Okay.
Tilo and Apollo actually.
Big
I like
game.
your tasteless impression. That's anytime he talks to you about drinking Monster.
It's too mean though. Yeah, it's too mean for the public.
Yeah.
It doesn't translate well.
No.
Thank you guys. Last question, I believe. Ambrose Pereira. I only have time to play on average over a week 2 ladder games a week, not including watching and reading about StarCraft 2. How would you suggest I improve? Also, I'm in Plat 3. Thanks.
Well, maybe because you're spending more time watching and reading some about it, and you're only playing a couple games. Just go into the games with really solid plans, and I think that might be the best way. If you're only playing 2 games a week but watching a reasonable amount, just kind of think it out before you start the game, like what you want to do, and try to do it.
I would say, like, if your goal is to improve and you can only play 2 games, make sure, and you have a lot of time to watch, make sure the stuff that you're watching is actually really good. So, like, if you're a Zerg player, I didn't hear what race he was, but like, if you're a Zerg player, Lambo stream's very good for like learning. And he's an up and comer. Watching Hero Marine Big Gabe is very good for Terran players. So just make sure the content you're watching is.
Let's just be straight up honest about it too. If you're a Protoss player, there's
We've
like
got
Falcon Paladin, okay? If you can find the time, there's this guy named Light that I've been watching quite a bit of. He streams a fantastic brand of the game.
State every now and then actually runs a great stream as well. So we should explain this, Jeff.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so for years and years, whenever people ask on Reddit, like, "Hey, I'm looking for a great Protoss stream," like this happens once a
Oh
month,
my
and then
God.
people just come out. It's like, "All right, well, Mechanic is my favorite. If you really want high level play, you know, there's guys like Buck," and then they go down the list: Minigun, State, and it's just like 7, 8, 9 guys, and nobody ever mentions Jeff and me, and we actually DM these threads to each other because it's like, seriously, like the guys who stream once
Kevin
a
will
week.
tweet out like, "Wow, this month was crazy. I streamed for 489 hours. Like that's
Yeah.
insane." And then people will be like, they'll be like, "Hey, it's tough to find, but man, I'll tell you what. If you can find such and such, they stream about 12 hours every 3 months. But Jesus Christ, this content is good." It's been. I call myself Reddit Invisible, which is actually probably for the best, but it's so funny because people are like, "Hey, looking for some funny StarCraft streamers. I really enjoyed a couple of the jokes that Fear Dragon made. Does anybody have any ideas?" I'll be like, I mean, Tasteless, obviously. He doesn't stream, and he's only on the GSL. But this is Yeah, just watch GSL, and they'll be like, "Who else?" They're like, "Ah, God, I don't know, Maynard, I guess." And there's like Zombie Grub's made a joke a couple of times. Dan's really funny, but we mostly laugh at him. It's nothing. Anyways, it's just funny. Thank you guys. That's all the questions. Appreciate that, and thank you for keeping them brief. Also, surprising no sentient food jokes. Which have we finally left that behind? I don't know. We're gonna wrap up the show real quick. I want to start with thanking our production team and the people that make the show possible behind the scenes. Cobra does a great job as the live producer. You guys missed it, was off camera, but he misspelled China trying to tell me something about China. It was 9 times. It was actually like he just kept spelling chain, China, chain, chain. And eventually I was like, I can't say anything because you guys are talking, but I was like, Matt, stop. I know it's China. Just stop. And he's like, chain, chain, chain. I was like, did he fall asleep with his face on the keyboard? Like,
Chain.
he kept deleting it and trying it again, and it was like stop. Anyways, these guys do a great job. We really can't do it without them, and they're an awesome team. And the show's come a long ways, by the way. I think it'd be kind of fun at some point to check out episode 1 and see it now and see where it's come and where it's going. We've got all kinds of great plans in the future as well. Speaking of which, we can't do it without our sponsors, AFKT. You guys are awesome. We thank you at the beginning of the show. We'll always thank you. It's just good to have those supporters. Matcherino. The code this week is
Ravioli.
ravioli. One word, ravioli. Put it in there.
Type it in. It's so easy to do, and it helps so much.
It literally.
I did it because Dan said, "What are you guys doing? Do it."
Yeah.
I did it.
Dude, if you don't have your computer auto logged into Matcherino, that's foolish because you get like portraits and stuff from there pretty regularly. Like Nation War is a great way to support. So just have your Battle.net account logged in, and then you just hit sign in, you hit contribute, and you type in ravioli.
Yep.
In fact, I typed ravioli in the wrong place. I typed it in comments, hit enter, it didn't work. I typed in below that, hit enter, it worked. Done.
2 tries.
So easy.
You have 2 clicks to that one. It's amazing. That kind of dedication. But it actually gives money to us, and people are asking about show matches and stuff in the future of the show. That would be the place we would go through. And they also sponsor the show directly and are just wonderful people to work with. So thank you to Matcherino. But the best way to support the channel would be to subscribe to our Patreon. It's been amazing. You guys are awesome. Trying to get over. We're always trying to grow it, and I think it's interesting because we don't really we don't super move the needle on this. So I'm not inspiring people. So let me be very clear. We need more money. Otherwise, Artosis is going to leave the show next week. He's just not going to do it anymore. So
Damn.
that's where we're at. It's.
Aren't you going to WCS? Are you even going to be on the show next week? Am I going to have to do it alone?
I
was going to leave.
I'm actually going to Adepticon next week. So yes, you are. Thank you for asking me. Yeah.
All right. See, I somehow I knew.
He can't leave the show, you guys. It just could be the end of everything that we know and love. So make sure and subscribe to that. If right now, anyways, just support us. Thank you. I think that's it for that part. So I want to once again give a tip of the hat. It's actually, here's the other funny thing, real quick, because we're done. It's hard to get Europeans in the show. This show starts at 3 a.m. It's a terrible time for Europeans, like uniquely the worst time ever. So every time you see a European on the show, they are a fucking champion of this game and this community. You need to love them. Please do the extra step. If for whatever reason you're not following the Muslim of Rotterdam on everything, please consider it. If you're like a Twitch guy, click the follow button. It'll let you know when they go live. The Muslims have been having great streams. Kevin is like on number 9 on my list of Protoss streams. I love checking out every chance I don't get. But do what you can to support them, please. It means a lot. It also helps us too. If when a guest comes on, you guys actually like go to their channel or like, hey, I liked what you said on the Pylon Show, or you follow them, because then they're more likely to come back on. If none of that ever happens, then it's hard to kind of tell these guys we'd like them to stay up till 6 and 7 a.m. and talk Starcraft when nothing changes for them. So subscribe to the channels, do that stuff, please. Love our people that help us make this so great. With that being said, the Muslim, the balance arbitrator of Terran himself, thank you for coming on. Do you have anything to announce? Are you doing anything soon? Or are you just streaming? What's new in your life?
Right now, just streaming, and I'm hoping to cast more in the future, honestly.
Very cool. Follow him on Twitter, the Muslim. Got it being shown right there. And you don't really have a schedule, right? You just kind of stream, turn it on, turn it off whenever.
You know, I was trying out this like morning and evening thing, but that sucks. So like right now, I have to set up another schedule, but I've been doing longer streams, like, you know, between 4 and 7 hours kind of thing, and it's working out much better. So
cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, man. We really do appreciate it. And Mr. Rotterdam, not a stranger to the show. Thank you for coming back again. Again, we made jokes, but this is like days after he just traveled. He's exhausted, and he took the time to do this. We really appreciate it. Kevin, you're doing a whole bunch of stuff these days. Please tell everyone all about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna slow down for me a little bit right now, but first of all, it was fun as always, guys. You guys made me laugh. I hope my neighbors don't hate me too much, but it was a good time. I actually only have like one wage. Obviously, I stream every day, and I know it's hard to find, but I hope that, guys, if you dig through the Twitch webs, you'll find my stream there every now and then. But every Wednesday, we're running the Clash Community Series, and I really feel passionate about it. This is something that I kind of came up with. I convinced Clash to run it. We've done 5 editions right now. TLDR is that everybody is welcome as long as you don't have more than 100 WCS points in 2018 or 2017. So obviously I'll spam the link on my Twitter. It's going to be on Reddit. It's going to be on Clash at Twitter. But I hope that next Wednesday we can really make it the best one up to date. It's actually been going really well. Like sometimes we have like over 100 signups, so I'm quite happy with it. We've had
Nice.
5 editions. I'm not going to sell you guys the pipe dream that anyone can win because there is money on the line as well, but there is a lot of good 6K plus players, right? But yeah, I really hope to see a lot of you guys give it a shot on Wednesday. Maybe I'll cash you, or maybe you'll play against some of my favorite players, like Goblin, for instance.
Goblin.
He was playing today. He's going to be there again next week. So yeah, I hope that you guys all want to take a look at the Clash Community Series, which is obviously broadcasted on twitch.tv/Clash_Starcraft 2 as the actual number fully written out. It's kind of stupid, but yeah, that's how they did it.
Very
That's next
cool.
Wednesday, 6 p.m. Central European time. I know it's bad for the Americans, but if you're free, give it a shot.
And you're home for a while, right, Kevin? You're just going to be streaming your regular
Yeah.
schedule?
Yeah, pretty much streaming. I might do. I wanted to actually really cast the round robin because obviously there's multiple games being played at once, but unfortunately that's not going to happen. So maybe I'll do like some sort of a reporting thing on Saturday. Since I'm not casting it, what I thought I could maybe do is like I'll watch the 3 streams that are all broadcasting games at the same time, and I'll just watch everything at once. And then if people want to know my opinion about anything, maybe I'll just do that, right? I don't know. Figure it out. But other than that, I'm going to try to ladder again because yeah, that the Muslim Zerk is really creeping off on me. We got to separate the men from the boys. So I've got a lot of work to do. I've traveled so much. I'm pretty bad at the moment, but yeah, we're going to work on it. But yeah.
Very good.
Thank you guys,
Kev.
and
Yep.
good night.
Thank you. Dan, what do you got coming up, buddy?
Just streaming and casting. I have GSL Code S on Wednesdays and Saturdays. The Saturday time good for NA people. Wednesday time good for EU people. So definitely check out the round of 16 last group we'll be doing on Saturday. And that is 2 days from right now. Other than that, just the Pylon show is going on in my personal stream. I've been doing, keeping pretty regular. So check that out and check out the Pylon show. Thank you everyone for supporting.
Awesome. This weekend I'll be casting WCS, so I do leave Friday night. I'll be there Saturday, Sunday, and then I'll be back. But then the following week I leave, I believe Wednesday. I'm going to Chicago to commentate the Adepticon tournament, which is one of the biggest Warhammer 40K tournaments on behalf of Games Workshop. So huge honor, really cool, but I will be missing the next Pylon show. And then I'll be back that following Monday and back in action, streaming StarCraft and all that stuff. Just huge shout out to everyone that subs, cheers, and donates during the show as well. It does not go unnoticed. We just obviously don't break conversation while it's happening, but that is also a way to support the show, is just having a noticeable mark on my channel where we host it. So just thank you guys for being a part of that, and thank you for doing that. That's it. Let's get these Europeans to bed. Appreciate you guys coming in. We'll see you next week with Dan hosting the show alongside some amazing guests, I'm sure. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye,
No doubt.
guys.
Night, lads.